Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. This is Corey LeBlanc, also known as the Ceremonial Witch. And if you're listening to this, then you're on Ceremonial Witchcraft, either through Spreaker, iTunes, Apple, God knows wherever else. I put an episode on yesterday. Technically, it would have been like yesterday morning, but it would have been like 2 days ago because it was after work. But it was probably after midnight, so it would technically be like yesterday morning. And it was Max Egan. I'm a big fan of Max Egan. I like what he stands for. I like his approach. I like how he puts the information out there, and he doesn't want to change anybody's mind on anything. Although he probably does in a certain, because he wants people to wake up. But what he promotes is the fact that he wants people to do their own research and come to the same conclusions either he has or And it's kind of similar to what I keep saying is the only thing we can really count on is the fact that they lie to us. We know they're lying to us, and when we focus on the details and try to prove what the lie is, or what the truth is rather, then that's when things become skewed and we start fighting within each other. And to me, that's part of the reason they do it. Keep us polarized against each other by using themselves as the bait, and then they don't give a shit if you hate them or love them. They don't give a shit if you think they're murderers or anything like this. And by them, I mean politicians, the elite, Illuminati's, fucking aliens, whatever you believe is running the world is what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say one specific group because, once again, we cannot prove these things. Now, we can have a very good, solid knowing that the government / politicians are definitely part of it. But in all honesty, I keep coming to the belief more and more and more that the politicians and the things we see on TV are nothing more than just actors. Everybody knew wrestling was fake, but we kept watching it. I believe fucking politics is the same way. We all know this shit's probably fake, but we keep watching it. I don't fucking pay attention to any of that bullshit. It's not going to serve you at all, and you can't do anything. Well, you can do things on the premise of getting more people aware, and by some miracle someone comes in office that may do some good. Then by making everybody aware that Trump, let's just use him as an example, is not doing well, or he should be impeached, and I'm not even going to go against that, because if you go by what's going on and all the evidence they have, then by 100% the motherfucker should be impeached. The only thing is I worry with Trump is he's a smart, devious, deceiving guy, and as somebody. My second oldest boy, he shares a lot of the traits with me. He has ADHD, I had ADD, and we have the same characteristics, and this is devious smart thing. And I heard on a Jordan Peterson recent thing I watched, and it said smart or intelligent, not necessarily smart. Well, one of those two, okay? One of them is above the other one. Smart is somebody who's got intelligence and maybe doesn't put it into practice, who just thinks they're smart. And intelligence is something you actually earn by, doing books and all that, but you're able to have more. And then ignorance is, thinking you have all the intelligence and unable to grab any more information, ignorance is really that you're ignorant of something, if you don't believe in the fact that you're eating meat is actually aiding to the animals dying, if you think, well, if I buy it or not, they're still going to kill the animals. Well, yeah, but if everybody stopped buying it, then yeah, they would eventually kill the animals. So the point is, ignorant is believing that, being stuck in your ways so much and not even understanding or knowing. But wisdom is, that intelligence and putting into action, making mistakes and continuously gaining more wisdom and shit. But anyways, point is, kids that have a high IQ or intelligent or smart or whatever learn to lie sooner. And that's because, they practice and play with that whole deception Gemini thing. It could be good, it can be bad. Talk my way out of it. Now, in my case, my boy, he can get away with some pretty good lies sometimes because I can't even catch them all. But because I am the way I am, I catch him in a lot of things because fucking so similar to me, And anyways, so when I see Trump, I see that same fucking thing, that deceivingly smart thing. And just to give you maybe a correspondence or some context, but when I used to do a lot of illegal things, right? And if I got pulled over by a cop and I had something going on, whether it was money, whether it was drugs, whether it was, I was on something or drunk or whatever the case was, if I was guilty and I got pulled over, I was the nicest shit to that fucking pig, that police officer, sorry. I'm sure there's a lot of nice cops out there. And if there's any cops listening to this, I don't mean any disrespect. I've had a lot of bad experience with cops, but I've had a lot of bad experiences with people in general, and a lot of good experience with people in general. So just generalize and say all cops are bad is not a good thing to do. It's something I've done for the majority of my life, but it's not a good thing to do. And that's adding to the problem and not the solution. But anyways, so when if I had something going on bad, I would be nice. No arrogance, no nothing. However, if I wasn't riding dirty anymore, so to speak, the song Riding Dirty, right? If I was riding clean now, I didn't have the money and everything is above board, because I used a lot of vehicles that didn't have insurance, didn't have the right plates, didn't have stickers, I ran without a license a lot, got a lot of fucking fines, got put in cuffs a lot, got put in jail a lot. But if everything was above board and I got pulled over, I was the most cocky, arrogant son of a bitch to that cop. And this is before I know what I know about certain laws. And, if you didn't get pulled over by breaking a law, because even if they say, hey, you were speeding, you can say, show me the fucking gun. Even before you give them your license. You have that right. And if you get pulled over doing nothing, if he says, oh, I suspect, well, I'm sorry, but I don't have to give you my details. Now, I can go two ways. You can be a dick and force you, and throw you in cuffs. But you can later fight that if you can get a lawyer to take the case, which is kind of, playing the odds there. But by all means, he went against your rights and freedoms, especially if you've done different processes. But anyways, the point I'm trying to get at is if a cop pulled me over and I was all above board, I would give him such a hard time. And not only that, because of this whole deceivingly smart thing, and I used to do the same thing with my parents, I would try to make myself look guilty. If he asked me to open the glove box, I would make it such a big stink about it to the point where he thought he was going to find something. I would make it look so damn bad, and it's locked. I don't have the key. This, that, and the other thing. No, why do you have to get in there? Blah, 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 blah. I'd even make myself look guilty. A little bit of acting and shit like that. And then when he'd open it, I'd laugh in his motherfucking face. And I'd say, if you keep pulling me over, I'm going to charge you with harassment. Back the fuck off. But I would make it look so bad that he would, you know what I mean? Because if the cop came and wanted to open my glove box and I just said, well, no, there's nothing in there. Everything's above board. No, open it up, let him look at it or not. And I didn't make a stink about it. Then they'd keep pulling me over, or he might not even want to look in there. But because he didn't have any rights or any reason to pull me over, let's say, I didn't walk away with a fine or anything like that. And he forced himself into that fucking glove box, quote unquote, illegally or borderline illegally, because now they can just say I smell pot, even though I can go take a blood test and say, hey, there's no pot in my system. Fight that too. Once again, hard to find a lawyer. But you know what I mean? Point is, if I don't make a big stink about it, and then he's, he wants, after that, he's so, okay, pop your trunk. Because he wants to find something, because he knows borderline, this is bad. I pulled this guy over for nothing. There's nothing there, but he's a known whatever. So there's a good chance there's something in here, right? He keeps going through his head that there's something bad happening. There's something bad happening. There's something bad happening. And I just keep fucking, no, you're not getting in my trunk. You already saw the glove box. That's good enough. Blah, blah, blah. You don't need to get in my trunk. I can't pop it. The thing's broken. I make do the same fucking thing using my deceivingly smart fucking, and this has been a curse probably more than it's been a talent. So I'm not saying it's a good thing at all. Not one bit. But this is how I acted. I did the same thing with my parents because I got in trouble a lot as a kid. But whenever I was innocent and getting blamed for something, I would do the same concept. And not necessarily guilt them, but I would make it look so bad so that when things actually looked bad and I was guilty, that they might think I was innocent. Same concept, right? So like if they thought I was doing something bad, smoking, cigarettes were missing, whatever the case was, if they searched my room, they might find ashes, they might find tobacco, and they could line it up with me. So when the times that it wasn't me or whatever the case was, I no, don't go to my room, make a big deal out of it. So my dad would think, okay, he's onto something for sure. And then when nothing was there, I'd be like, can you please stop doing this to me? I know I was guilty, but I'm really trying not to do this anymore. So yeah, maybe I was guilting a bit. Point is, I would do the bad things, and then when I wasn't doing the bad things, I got in trouble if my parents came in my room or believed I was doing something bad when I had nothing bad going on, or a cop pulled me over and I had nothing, everything was above board, I would make it look like I was guilty so bad that when I was proven innocent, I would get them to back off at least for a bit. And this is what vibe I get with all this Trump shit going on. Now, I played Max Egan talking about the Yemen shit a bit what they're doing in Yemen and stuff like that. And then Birch, I listen to Birch all the time. Birch is a great man. I learned a lot from him, and he is very hugely invested in the Trump stuff. And I'm not in the States, so I don't know how it is down there. And I know what happens in the States affects us. So technically, I can't vote or do anything like that, but I could technically come on here and tell people to watch out and, do my part. But in all honesty, I don't see any effects of the Trump thing going on. He made a bunch of statements. He's going to put a wall up near Canada, and I live right on the border, and there's no such wall ever come here. There hasn't even been any security. A lot of the shit he said never even hit my little border town whatsoever, and maybe it's because I'm not a big enough town, fair enough, but the majority of things he said in the media about things he was going to do to Canada, he never even went through on. So once again, I'm not going to get all up in arms and pissed off about things he says, because I believe he's a fucking magician. I believe he practices some kind of... I don't believe he's Christian at all. I believe, and at the very least, if he is a Christian, I believe he's at least read the Kabbalion, or he knows at least polarity, for one, cause and effect, and, mind, all his mind. He at least knows those because he displays it. And once again, that's what I think he's doing. I think he's not giving out his tax forms, and he's making such a stink. So everybody thinks he's guilty. Even his supporters, or maybe even borderline, think he's guilty. And when it comes to light, and let's say he releases those, and you know what? His real tax forms are probably dirty. So I'm not saying he's clean by any means. But when he finally gives good tax things that they can't be disputed, and he's going to throw a bone in there, something's going to look fishy, but it's not going to be an indictable offense or an impeachable offense, basically. So he's going to throw a bone in there, and that's what it's going to look like, why he was so hesitant to put it out there, and not the fact that he's just doing what I just explained to you, being a deceivingly smart fucking play, what he's doing basically here. But I believe that's the case. And then when that happens, he might not even have to go through any of the other crap that he's being put up on, whatever, for charges or for, they might just drop everything because they were so wrong about this. And, his supporters that maybe thought he was guilty of something are going to be loyal forever and re-vote for him. And he might even change the minds of people that, went against him. This is probably one of those plays that is do or die for him. He's always coming up with new plays. It's probably not even him. This is probably some think tank or somebody did it for him because, he might be a deceivingly smart guy, or he might just be the face and someone behind him is actually doing all the bullshit. There's no way to really know because, sometimes he displays intelligence, sometimes he displays ignorance, sometimes he displays, just stupidity. So there's no way of knowing if it's him or somebody else. But the point I'm trying to get at is if I was in his position up for re-election and was having these claims and things coming against me, or even if I didn't have it, okay, say we did an early poll and, odds were against me, or it was a 50-50 chance. Well, what's the best way to do this? Well, first of all, the first election, people were talking about him, thinking he wasn't going to make it, and he made it. It was on everybody's mind. The fact that everybody voted for him because that's all they heard, all they saw over and over again. No bad press. There's no such thing as bad press, basically, kind of thing comes in here. You can keep tearing out his name, and if he keeps knocking these allegations out of the park and they keep not being real, or whatever, and I'm not saying that they're not real, I'm saying because he's commander-in-chief, he can basically make the rules, and especially if it's his I don't know if it's his judge that's in there from his party or whatever. I don't really know all the ins and outs, to be honest, but if the guy going to be prosecuting him, or the judge, or whatever the case is on his side, then what are the odds that it's actually going to happen? But point I'm trying to say is that I think it's a big red herring. It's a misdirection fucking play he's pulling here. He's going to make it look like I did with the glove box. I'm going to make that glove box look like there's dope, there's drugs, there might even be a body fucking cut up in there, locked up. Maybe even look like blood dripping from it. Fuck. So the cop wants to get in there so fucking bad that when he finally breaks the law and gets in there, against my will, he finds absolutely fucking nothing. So I can tell him, if you keep fucking coming at me, I'm going to fucking charge you with harassment because you had no grounds to do this. And that's what Trump's going to do. Unless by some miracle, and then if he's done everything everybody said, like, he deserves to get the fuck out of there, okay? Now, I'm not one to take any media at any word, okay? Whether it's independent, whether it's whistleblowers, whether it's any of this shit. I don't take anybody's word because I don't think you can trust anybody, really. Everybody's got their opinion, everybody's got their outlook, and, everybody's tainted by that, And the people that aren't tainted by it don't give a shit. Really, if they're depolarized and in the middle, they don't give a shit about this shit, because it doesn't matter who's in office. They're going to keep creating their circumstances, their outcomes, their life, basically. And you could say, well, how are you going to do that if they're coming at you? Well, it's not going to be that way. You can take everything he says, and I know there's a lot of proof of all this shit he's done, and there is some bad, like I put the Yemen shit on here for a reason, because there's an election coming up, and because I think he is complicit in these acts to Yemen and, Saudi Arabia. He's on their side with Israel and with Russia and all these guys, okay? I put that on there because I wanted people to hear that, because I don't want to paint the picture that I think Trump's a good guy whatsoever. If anything, I'm trying to paint the opposite picture. You don't want a president in there who's going to do dirty little tricks like I would do, like I did as a child. That's what I'm trying to get across here. I think that's what he's doing, but I think it's this final fucking act, this play to get everybody off his back. He's going to make himself look guilty, and then when he's forced against his will, whenever the left makes him fucking show the proof and makes him go against his rights and all this, he's going to make a big stink about it. And when it comes to light that he didn't do anything wrong, because once again, I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong, okay? I'm sure he's done plenty wrong. He's a human being. How can he not do wrong? Everybody does wrong. Everybody pointing the finger at him has done something wrong in their life, So, I digress. But this is what I think is going to happen. Whenever they force him, he's going to have so many grounds to fucking, let's say they found something dirty on him, but it was done illegally. Well, he's going to have reason to dismiss it, but no one's going to reelect him because he's dirty. But if they force in on him, force his records, force all these things, okay? Which, technically he should be giving up his tax records, so that's not really forcing, okay? But that's what I mean. The reason he's not giving them is because he wants himself to look guilty, so that when it finally happens, he can make a big deal out of it and laugh in everybody's face and be like, ha ha, you all thought I did something wrong, fuck you, I'm right. And don't tell me that that's not something he would do, because he would totally do. He's going to tweet that shit, he's going to Instagram that shit, he's going to Facebook that shit, he's going to do everything to that shit. You know that. He's going to run that forever. And every time someone tries to come against him, be like, oh, this sounds like the last time you came against me, and guess what, you were fucking wrong. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? It's just, that's what he's going to do. That's what I would fucking do. And I'm not saying he doesn't have dirty laundry somewhere. He does. And that should be the aims. You shouldn't take the dirty laundry that's coming at you from media. You should look for the dirty laundry that isn't there, that you can't see. Because he's going to let you have the dirty laundry he wants you to have. They're going to release that shit because they can control the outcome. But you're not going to be able to get him on that, because that's just bullshit. More theater for the fucking masses. And you're all playing to his fucking hand. And then he's going to be reelected, and he's going to have 4 more years to fuck everything up. Don't be a fool. Don't keep playing into this shit. Find what you think may be legit. But if there's too much shit stacking up against him, and it's coming from media, what the fuck are you trusting it for? Are you fucking kidding me? Come on. I'm not saying it's not true. It probably is true. But there's probably something worse that, unbelievable. I just don't know what to make of it, because, once again, I don't see any of the effects. So I'm not necessarily biased, but because I'm here in Canada, I'm on a border town. And, when he first came out and said all this shit about the wall, we're going to put the wall up. Well, my town is actually called Cornwall. You know what I mean? Cornwall. So I'm going to put walls up on every borders. Hey, look, Cornwall's there. Hey, put up a wall. I don't know. That's just stupid. But point is, he never did anything. Security didn't even get heightened. I got a criminal record, and it's easier for me to get in the States than all hell. You know what I mean? The media paints a picture that the sky is falling, and yet you go outside and the sky is fine. They paint the picture that the world is going to shit, and you know what? We are doing some terrible things to this goddess, to Gaia, to the world. But I'm not worried about her. I'm worried about the people that do the bad shit to her. The people that continue to be complacent in killing the animals that she, has on the earth using her, and the trees, and doing all this bad shit. And and pointing the finger and judging people whenever they're no one better. You know what I mean? There are procedures and things put in place that we don't agree with and need to be changed, and that could be the political scene. But provide a remedy, or really do something about it, or just let it be, because you might be thinking you're helping put him down, but you might be just making it worse, making it better for him, making it easier. Because if you're bringing more light to all the shady shit he's doing, and he becomes proven innocent, even if he's not, okay? Everybody knew OJ was guilty. Motherfucker got an innocent fucking verdict, and he's fucking free. What do you think, what makes that different for Trump? The more emphasis you put on his faults, and the more he becomes proven innocent from that, the more he's going to be able to shove it in your fucking face. I don't want anybody that, that does a good job be torn down by this, or anybody who's providing service to people, putting out independent news and giving people like real or truthful more news, more like truth news, to be fucked over by whenever this comes to light. And it's going to happen before the election, that. He's going to keep making a stink, and what do you think it keeps happening and it keeps getting delayed? What do you think it keeps, okay, it goes to this person, but they hold on it. Goes to this person, but they sit on it. Goes to this person, but they're not agreeing to release it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this horse shit. Everybody knows that. It's for the fucking media, And if they wanted something settled outside of the media, then they wouldn't be doing it in the media. They want everybody to see this clearly, or else no one would fucking see it. Can't tell me that he can't fucking stop the cameras from coming. No one has to allow the press on the lawn. You've watched enough movies to know that the president has to allow them to go on their lawn. He doesn't have to. He can literally say, no, I'm not allowing the media to come on the lawn. Movie stars, celebrities have different laws than regular civilians. Movie stars and celebrities are in the public eye, therefore they don't have the law. Like, if someone comes and takes a picture of me or video of me without my knowledge, even if they're standing on the fucking street, which is a city property. Now, this is Canada, but anyways, I think it might be the same for the States, but it may not be. But I'll tell you why I think it might be. But if someone's standing on the road taking a picture of me in my fucking home, and I know it, don't ask me how I'm going to track him down, take the camera, and prove it. But let's say I can't. He has to fucking either pay me, get my consent, and that would be, that picture, no problem, as long as I'm not doing something bad, but, give me $100 and it's all yours, bud. No, then delete the fucking picture, or I'm taking you to court. Obviously, that shit wouldn't go far. Point is, though, there is laws like that. People can't just take random pictures of you, you know what I mean? That's why at school, there's a consent form even for them to take pictures of your fucking kids. And you have to, picture day is this day. If you want your kid there, send them to school. It's like a verbal contract, basically. They take a picture, and then, all these parents get to have your kid's picture, which you might be able to fight in some weird way, but that's besides the point. But celebrities have different laws. So that's why in Los Angeles, now I've never been, but my wife was there this year. She went on a trip with her brother and her mother, and one of her brother's friends. And they went downtown Hollywood. They saw Leonardo DiCaprio's house. And she said, you should have seen the amount of armed guards in front of his fucking mansion. Gated, everything. And that's what I told her. I'm like, well, yeah, because these fucking crazies are allowed to take pictures of him. And I don't know if they're allowed on his property or not to take pictures of him. But I'm like, I'm sure that doesn't stop him from going in the windows and taking a picture. And, even if they're on the property, you got to prove that. And that's a very hard thing to do. It is probably breaking the law. But, you can always fight it, be like, I was on the road, whatever. So he protects himself. He has that right. They're allowed to bear arms legally. He's allowed to hire private security and keep those motherfuckers away from him. He's probably a private guy. Maybe he does something. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just wants to keep acting and his regular life separate. Point is, they have different rules. I don't have to put armed guards outside my house. Who the fuck would want to take a picture of me anyways? Nobody, right? But I don't have to have armed guards outside my house to stop people from taking pictures of me. But Ariana Grande and whoever the fuck's popular, Post Malone and, Leo from Titanic and shit like that, you know what I mean? Or fucking Wolf of Wall Street. Whoever, they need to protect themselves from this shit. Because they're in the public eye. Trump's in the public eye. He's a fucking actor. He was a businessman, but mainly he's an actor. And he's still a fucking actor. He ain't no goddamn president. Max Egan said it before. You can pick a piece of toast and put it in the presidency chair, and you'd have the same effect as you have it now. And it doesn't matter if it's Obama, Hillary, or Trump. All you're doing is you're putting fucking different color fucking mayo or ketchup or whatever you put on your fucking toast. That's it. Same fucking outcome. Doesn't fucking matter. We're not going to get anywhere with this system. But if you fucking follow politics and you want to vote and try to get somebody else in, well then do it. Create awareness for that person instead of trying to tear down the other guy. Bring up that person. Elevate that person that you want in the chair. And if you don't think there's anybody good in the chair, then run or find somebody to run. I mean, it's the only system we got, and unless you're going to come up with a good way to tear down that system, okay, I'm not trying to sound pessimistic because I don't believe in voting. I don't believe in this. I don't believe we should be living like this. But I do know that if we got rid of this system overnight, we'd be all fucked. It would be anarchy, and not in the good way, in the bad way, not in the self-governing way. I don't need a cop to tell me what to do, how to live my life way. In the way that anybody who's homeless and hurting on the streets from drugs would all of a sudden be like, no rules? Get up, no fucking withdrawal symptoms, and start robbing liquor stores and drug stores and pharmacies and everywhere, just fucking looting and destroying and taking it out on everybody they fucking hate. Going to it would be pure, and I don't even like using the term anarchy, but that's the closest word I could use for that, to be honest. But anyways, that's besides the point. I just don't want anybody to be fucked over whenever Trump be like, ah ha ha, suckers, I played y'all. You know what I mean? And I could be completely wrong, and honestly, I hope I'm fucking wrong. I hope he didn't do these horrible things to people. But it's looking like he may have. So if he did, I hope he gets impeached. And if he doesn't, then God, I hope to hell someone else gets in there with a little bit of sense and starts doing something right. Once again, I'm in Canada. I'm not in the States. And yes, things echo. We are attached at the fucking waist. We're the upper body, they're the lower body. We're the upper chakras, the lower chakras, or vice versa. However you want to look at it. Because technically, from the shit I've looked at, if you look at the earth, the root chakra would actually be at the north, and the head chakra would be at the south. So we'd actually be the lower chakra, and the States would be the higher chakra. And Mexico would be like the crown, which is kind of weird. But further you go that way, closer you're getting to all those fucking pyramids and shit. So kind of makes sense when you think about it like that. Mexico's got a whole lot of fucking nice pyramids. South America's got a whole lot of nice pyramids and shit like that. Mesopotamia, all these fucking places, it's along the equator and shit like that. So there's fucking, there's some real fucking shit to look into with that little statement I just said there. But yeah, and us being this further up, this is probably why we have the issues that we have, and why farther down south, those places, you have more tribal areas. And you can say, okay, well, they're not civilized and this and that, but it's because we weren't meant to be civilized in the way we're civilized right now. I don't think. And I believe the people that started these procedures, like the people in the States, and hopefully the guys in Canada that started, we don't have a constitution, we have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I hope they did it on the grounds to try to help make better. But there's all the evidence in the world that these motherfuckers did it to just rule over people. There's some good principles that Birch goes over and over again about the founding fathers, being, Masons and all that, whatever. Believe what you want to believe about that. I'm not going to get into that because I probably have a different opinion than most, But the fact of the matter is, we should probably live in harmony with nature. And yes, we can have fucking scientific developments and all that, but it shouldn't be bombarded and fucking capitalized and fucking marketed and commercialized and, shoved in front of every fucking man, woman, child, and baby. Especially when we know there's harmful effects and we're just going to be ignorant to that so other people can make a fucking profit. I don't think I've ever found that actual fucking interview yet, but when I do, I will put it on here, but it's the maker of the television saying that, this is going to, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but he made two statements, and one was that he wouldn't let his children watch it, and the second was that this is going to make Americans even more ignorant or dumb or something to that effect. And I'm not dissing Americans because us Canadians are the same fuck, or probably worse, I don't know. It's a close fucking second, So I hope I don't offend anybody by this, and I'm not trying to fucking promote Trump. I'm not trying to throw him down. I don't have a political stance because I don't fucking vote. That's my political stance. I don't fucking vote. It's not going to bring any real change. And as shown before, if you believe the hype and, the fake fucking voting machines, even if you vote, there's a good fucking chance that it's going to get altered anyways. So what the fuck is the point? What the fuck is the point indeed? So I won't keep continuing on that, but I hope I made my point. And I don't want to say or try to come off as if I have the answer or I'm right or this is exactly what's happening, because once again, can we ever really know exactly what the truth is? No. Can we ever really know exactly what's going on? No. And all we can do is base our opinions, which, our opinions are based on our belief systems. And, as I already said, is tainted upon that, right? But anyways, we only on the information we can get, which is what you can look up on fucking Google or maybe the dark web if you want to go a little more in depth where you don't have fucking so many filters and it's geared to what you can see and what you can't see, basically, because the more and more further we get, the more restricted we get. Forget where, I think it came from somebody Jordan Peterson was talking to, but marketers want, because they have more algorithms more and more every day, to zero people who are on the internet or anywhere on the phone, wherever, to zero them in and know their. He was talking about a company, I think it was in Sweden, who uses your Facebook 5. I forget the exact terminology, so I'm very sorry. But this company had an algorithm, a system that would basically, take the users, basically their data from their phone. I think it was generally coming from Facebook, but it might have come from other sources. And it was just this way, all the things that they were bombarded with from, hotels to consume, to be a consumer, basically, would be the only things that pop up. You wouldn't get things that you didn't want to see. You would only get the things that are relevant to you. Basically, you're being restricted is what it came down to, right? And they're doing it so, because marketers don't want you to be bombarded with a bunch of shit you don't want. No, they only want the things that you want or deem necessary or need to be available for your eye to pick up, so that you're more likely to pick what they're selling, basically, or whoever's selling it for them, so that everybody gets a cut, basically. But by doing that, it restricts it, because every search you do, every fucking thing you go on, instead of giving a big variety, and, because Bert says he doesn't like to tell everybody the answers because he believes that knowledge is found in the search. So by looking certain things up, it leads you down different ways to find and get different knowledge. But the way the shit's going is that the more and more algorithms are put on these different websites and search engines that we use, we're only getting the things that whoever puts those algorithms there has fucking calculated to be necessary for us, which is all in the guise and the scope of buying. For right now, the majority of it is for buying and consuming, so we're not completely restricted on, just looking for information and stories and shit like that. Well, I mean, I'm sure we are to a certain extent. I'm sure there's some stories out there that we're not going to see, right? Because that's Frater and Birch and a couple other guys have had videos on YouTube talking about how there's certain guys that go flow to the top of your recommended. You can be watching a video about magic, but then you're getting all these other fucking videos that have nothing to do with that whenever you fucking subscribe to these other guys that have very similar videos with the same fucking tags in it, and they're not popping up on your necks. This is kind of what I'm talking about. They're controlling the information we receive. Therefore, the only information you're receiving is what is being allowed, and that's kind of the point. So even if, let's say, you weren't a fan of a specific fucking media station, Medea, the fucking goddess Medea, is fucking the art of fucking, well, in a sense it's deception, but that's not the exact term I would use. But it has a lot to do with, not a lot to do with Gemini, but anyways, I'll get back to that, okay? I'll pull it up so I can say exactly right, so I'm not proven wrong or sound like a fucking idiot, but anyways, so the media, let's say you don't like a certain fucking branch of government, you don't like a certain fucking station, you don't like this, you don't like that, right? And what's the reason for that? Well, polarity, because they've been putting things on there that you don't think are relevant, or they're not telling the whole truth. You don't like a specific news station because they're against your political views, because you have belief systems and their belief systems are opposed to you. But then all of a sudden, you start thinking, it's all fake news. It's all fucking fake. All these stations are controlled by the same person, so ultimately they're fake. But then all of a sudden something happens, and even though they're controlled by the same station, you have one of these that are kind of left-wing, and one of these are right-wing. So this other one is actually going against the commander-in-chief versus the other one was for him. So now you start, this person is actually agreeing with what I agree with. So once again, same fucking thing. The polarity that pushed you away from the other channel, from that channel initially, it's now pulling you in through polarity. It's telling you what you want to fucking hear. It doesn't make it fucking real or true. It's just telling you what you want to hear. It doesn't matter if it's for or against Trump. It's for Trump. All of it is. And it doesn't matter because controversy gives you energy. I've learned that from Birch, and I have his transformation sigil up, and I use it. So maybe I'll create some controversy for what I'm saying here and get some energy. But that isn't my main purpose. My main purpose was just I really wanted to put out what I think he's doing. And it's just because it came to me, I was trying to sit there quietly because I worked last night, came home, and went to sleep. And I just woke up so I could see my baby before she went off to daycare. And then I was going to lay down, and I was going to meditate, and I was going to do some of my spiritual practices and all that. And when I laid down to meditate, the latest Wittershins kept playing in my head. So that's where this is derived from. And then the idea came of me in the cop car on the 401. I was in cuffs. He cuffed me before he went through the fucking glove box in the trunk that day, right on the side of the 401, right near my hometown, like a criminal. And I was still fucking acting out like, no, please don't go in there. Don't go in there. You don't have any rights, blah, blah, blah. Making myself look guilty. And then that's when the light bulb clicked on, like, holy fuck, this is not much different. That's what it seems like Trump's doing, and I've had that vibe for a while that he's playing an angle that we don't quite understand, and that they're releasing only the information that they want us to know that control the variables. I've had a few videos about this, that the chemtrails in the sky may be killing us, and I'm sure they are, but they're mainly there. Their main purpose is something else that they don't want us to know. And they're well and okay and even for us believing that they are monsters trying to kill us through, the chemtrails and all that, as long as we don't take a look at what it's really covering up, and then I punted the idea that, back in the day, I went through a bunch of different, I didn't go through, I found videos of people who did some really extensive research that whenever there's comets and different anomalies in the sky going on, that we have different magnetic anomalies here on Earth. And I told everybody to check the records of the earthquakes, because in my hometown we don't get fuck all. We're in this little valley, right? So we don't get tornadoes, we don't get hurricanes, we don't get anything. No, not even earthquakes. But we've been getting, I looked at it, and we get a lot of tremors very frequently, and they've been ramping up. And for most places that I looked, I've seen that trend, and that is consistent with the theory of the person I put on there. So the fact that you look out most days and it's a cloudy fucking sky, well, there's probably a reason for that, and it's not so much to do with the chemtrails. And not only did we put up a fuss about chemtrails and know that it's killing us, and people tried to make a stand, it didn't even stick, and they're still technically doing it. So that's either because it doesn't actually hurt us and they can keep doing it, or just we really are fucking that powerless. So if we can't even fight something that small, then how hard is it going to be to fight something big? And I don't want to believe that. I believe that we are powerful, but I believe it starts with your own individual power. Because to not have your own individual power and yourself in check, and study your dark side, and to not use your biases and get revenge and stuff like that, that would be the only way. If you're completely, if you have all that shit in check, then you could possibly lead and do something correct, whether it's magically, whether it's in a committee, whether it's organizing people, whatever the case is. But the point is that they're perfectly fine with us thinking that, and I believe that even before they release the chemtrails and let us know that this is happening and all that they think up all the possible ways that we may interpret this, and then they control the variables, and then they release it to media, they release it to independent media, they release it on whatever, all these different places, and then we come up with ideas that they've already formulated solutions for, and arguments against and shit like that. I really believe that they think all this shit through that fucking much, and maybe that's just because that's how I would do it. I believe because I may be a little too meticulous and I overthink things too much. But if you're in some kind of place of power where, it seems like, it would be, you fuck up a little bit, then, whatever. But anyways, like I said, if you even look at the patents, you can see the patents for different chemicals that they are making, different patents for putting these sprayers on the planes. They're right there. And around the same time, Bayer, who are the makers of like aspirin, well, they make a lot of shit, but probably more prominently and more popular for aspirin, Bayer had a patent for, I can't remember what it was, but it was to make a medication to combat the symptoms of these chemical sprays. Okay, it was right fucking there, all right? And they were okay with us knowing this. Because if not, it would have been blocked. It would have been shut down. And it's still on YouTube. I'm going to fucking find it there. I had it the other day. I forgot to save it, so I got to find it again and I'm going to play it. But it would be shut down. It would be blocked. Because I've had my own, I have videos that are blocked. I have my own website that I put the links up for my speaker shit, and I have pictures on there, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I had a couple episodes where I played Max Egan, and he was talking about pedophilia a lot, and it got blocked, right? Someone probably reported it and all that. Point is, when shit's bad, they block it. This was Google that actually did it. It wasn't actually someone who reported it, because it wasn't with their guidelines or whatever. Point is, though, they block shit. I have all my speaker episodes go onto my YouTube, and there's some that are blocked. You can't get all my speaker episodes via YouTube. You have to actually go to Spreaker, possibly iTunes, and Apple Radio, and Tumblr, and fucking whatever else. But iHeartRadio, I don't know if I said that already. But anyways, I'm not trying to self-promote, because like I said, I make enough ad revenue from this just to keep paying for my package, and I'm happy with that, because it's just kind of like a hobby, a hobby outlet, and something I like to do. A kind of a little bit of a creative process, right? But anyways, so that was the point, and that's what I think is happening once again. The media itself, it's just polarity. It's a polarity battle. It's to keep us polarized. It's to keep people for and keep people against. And not for or against them, for or against each other. Yes, technically we're for and against them, but they don't care whether we love them or hate them. They don't care if they think we're murderers or gods or geniuses or saviors or any of that. They don't give a shit. Because they know they can't appeal to everybody, first of all. They know they can't make everybody happy. You'll never be able to make everybody fucking happy. Even if we all agreed and we changed the world and it was a beautiful place and everybody had an equal amount of money, or everybody had what they wanted. Say someone wanted a lot of money, they had it. Someone wanted just family and someone wanted a lot of yard, whatever. Everybody had what they wanted. Somebody would still be pissed off and unhappy. So they don't give a shit about that. They care about the majority being for or against. All right? So that's what I actively am going against. It's not necessarily politics. It's not necessarily the process or who's in power. It's against this polarity battle that in my initiation I had to learn, and I have to continue to learn, to be in between both those fucking pillars. So when something as polarizing as politics, religion, the media, which is there just to control your mind and not the way people think, probably, there's probably truth to MK Ultra and all the shit they did in the 60s and 70s or whatever with acid and all that, and brainwashing people, sure, of course. But it's mainly about continuing and promoting the fucking mindset, the paradigms, the programming that you had in your head as a child. And they keep promoting that, over the TV shows you watch. And the more this different algorithm comes out to know exactly how you are, how you think, and what you need and want, while your TV shows are going to be only going to show up the ones you want. The things you watch on YouTube are going to show up to facilitate and keep that programming going. And same thing with what you buy and all this shit. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. Why do you think they want better, faster internet and better fucking 5G and all this shit? I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bad things they can do with that, but it's to mainly monitor and only give people what they want them to know. Because how can you control people? Well, you can't, because you control people a little bit through laws, what you can and can't do, but you have to find the person, you have to prove them guilty and all this. But the main way to stop people from doing bad things or rising against or this and that and the other thing is to only allow them to see what you want them to see. That's how you change the fucking narrative. That's how you keep generation after generation believing the same shit. And you just keep tweaking that along as you go, erasing things and adding certain things. That's why, if you look at the Bible stories and anything in the Bible, you get a whole different view than what the Christian religion is trying to tell you that you need to do. You go to church and they're just going to tell you need to be a good person, believe in Jesus and repent your sins and, this and that and the other thing. You'll fucking you'll say a couple, maybe Psalms and a couple Gospels and this and that, and they only pick bits and pieces out of there. And then you fucking give them money. You take your fucking piece of flat bread that's supposed to be the body of God. Bullshit. Why would you eat the body of God? Supposed to fucking give a sacrifice to him, not fucking take something from him. To me, that's the fucking opposite of what you should do. But anyways, it's a whole different thing. If you use esoteric knowledge and you read that and you try to cut out the bad shit that people like King James and other assholes put in there deliberately to tear down magic and witchcraft and all this. If you put those things aside or you change the narrative or you find out what the real meaning was, okay, and you read the book the way it is and you add it to all the other holy books and you read them the way they are and you add esoteric knowledge and you don't look at it as a Christianity doctrine, dogma, brainwashing, bullshit scheme. If you look at it as something old that has wisdom and it's your job to decode it, well, then you can do a lot of profound things. Because I'm telling you right now, you can watch Disney movies and take out profound knowledge and wisdom from there. I do it all the fucking time. And I don't necessarily think Disney's good or giving out a good message. And I got 2 little girls that love the Disney princesses, but I don't necessarily like what they're trying to fucking promote either, to be completely honest. But point is, fuck, I have too many points. I can't even fucking stay on point. But the polarity that the media is using and Donald Trump is using, it's classic hermetics. Anybody who thinks these people, they may be pushing Christian doctrines and all that, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, the elites and the ones in charge may push a Christian doctrine and pretend to be Christian. Even the Pope, I think, pretends to be a Christian. But that St. Paul statue is fucking Jupiter. Alright? He's got a big fucking clock there for a reason. That big fucking phallic looking fucking thing. Well, where the sun goes around, it tells the fucking time right in fucking St. Peter's Square there at the fucking Vatican. And that biggest fucking statue there, anyways, I'm not sure if it's the biggest because I've never been there, but judging by the pictures, that's St. Peter. It's not Jesus Christ. Alright? It's not God. It's not Moses. It's not Noah. Alright? It's Peter. Peter doesn't even have a gospel. Oh, maybe Peter does have a gospel. I know the 4 gospels are Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. And I think Peter does have parts in the Bible, so don't quote me on that. But St. Peter is Jupiter. All right? So the fucking Pope is astrology, is an astrologer. Or anyways, is a form of fucking sun, maybe the old sun, Mithra Persian fucking doctrine mixed with, fucking the old Druids and the fucking everybody they fucking took over the years and collected their books, the ones that didn't fucking burn. But they push that Christian doctrine because they want people to be like fucking sheep. And that's what they fucking promote. Lamb of God, you take away the sins of the world. They're promoting the fucking sheep. They're not even hiding the fucking goddamn thing. How many fucking of Jesus' stories talk about the sheep? The fucking one sheep got away and he spent all day looking for that one sheep and then he came back home and had a party about the sheep that came back home and the other sheep was jealous. It's the same story as the fucking prodigal son. Same fucking story with sheep. It's unbelievable. And who knows? Maybe that changed. Maybe that was added. I don't know. But what I'm saying is you can look at it as a way as, they're trying to make us like sheeple. Yeah, fuck, you got a point. But you can also take the esoteric knowledge out of it. Like, you take that story about the prodigal son, and there's some good knowledge in there. There's a good storyline in there that you can take and use to your advantage. It's a way to live and a warning. And if you just look at the old language alone, and you add it to today's language, you'll see a lot of words that look alike that don't have the same meaning. That's a different story altogether. But anyways, the point is, I don't believe that anybody there is who they say they are. Trump may be playing on the right side, and whoever else is playing on the left side, but it's just 2 hockey teams, 2 basketball teams, 2 baseball teams, 2 soccer teams, 2 tennis fucking people. I don't care what you want, fucking sport you want to play, whatever it is. It's 2 fucking teams going at it to see who wins. And their job is to play off against each other. The left's job is to get people on their side. The right's job is to get people on their side. And the medias are made to keep that controversy going, to promote these 2 sides. It's their own film crew. We have the actors in Hollywood that make movies, and then we have the movie crews and all that shit, and the TV shows and all this, and we have the music and the artists and all that. Well, the media is there, like the news channels and all that shit. They're there to film these fuckers and put on their show. One day down the line, it's gonna be like wrestling. It's gonna be, holy fuck, it was fake this whole time and we thought it was real. I don't think anybody ever thought that about wrestling, but I'm just saying it's gonna come down to that. It's already coming down to that. I already believe that. I think most people do. But it doesn't make any of these acts that they may do to people that are suffering in other countries and other places, it doesn't make it any less horrifying, okay? Please don't think I'm trying to say that. I'm not trying to promote or say that the crap they do to any of these people or countries or, any of this crap is worth it. You got these people sitting around a table or in a committee or a House of Commons, whatever, wherever it is, and they make these things and they do these things and they say these fucking things, and then military and people have to go in and do the crime committing or whatever it is that they're doing, but they're just following orders from people that are sitting around that don't even see the injustice, that are playing a role and a part. That's why I don't believe in this system. Don't at all. I don't at all. It's stupid. I was trying to get to earlier with the fucking, the tribes and shit. And further down you get close to the equator and all that, and we have a native reserve on our island, but they're not like any actual tribes anymore. They all have houses and nice cars and shit like that. But the stories they can tell you are pretty brutal. But what I mean is, I think we should be all living, and this could be just this belief system coming into play and shit like that. Like, I have the belief of I'd like to be living off my own land. I have a home. However, I got the home, and let's see, I don't have all the details, so I can't tell you, because it's circular, right? You gotta make the food and sell the food to make the house, and shit like that. But I'd like to live off of my own, have a fucking couple cows for fucking milk, and have to do my gardening all year, and then the harvest comes and cut my fucking crops and bring the shit in and make it last all fucking winter. So there's no corporate company having, don't worry about it, we'll take care of this all year round. Yeah, but just trust us to take care of you and put good shit in your body. And then, how many years down the line, now we got GMOs everywhere, bad food, we have animals that are not even alive. They're technically the DNA strand of a fucking chicken, but they don't have a beak or eyes or feet, and they're just being intravenously fed until they're fat enough, and then they chop off the fucking shit, take off whatever's there, and then they sell it to KFC, and that's what you're eating, or sell it to the fucking stores. The McDonald's chicken nuggets are mostly this fucking chemical paste that they add fucking chicken flavor to. It's disgusting, and that paste, you know what that paste is from? It's a chemical that they use to, after the chicken has completely been taken, all the fat and everything you can possibly use of it, they take this chemical paste and they clear the bones because there's still a little bit more in there. And that paste ends up becoming something edible, apparently, or so they thought, and they add chicken flavor to it, and that's why it may or may not contain white fucking meat or chicken or something to that effect. Something stupid like that. Now, and that's a story I got from an independent media. So, is that real or not? I don't know. I don't fucking know, but I'm not going to take a chance and eat a fucking McNugget to find out. Fuck that shit. I'd rather grow my own shit. I'd rather live like that. And that's what I mean by the tribes. The further down you go. But then our governments are going in there into different places that, might be less civilized in their eyes and say, hey, you need democracy, or you need Republicans, or you need this, or you need our way of living, and we want your resources, or we don't want people to know your way of living, so we're going to kill you and use false pretenses and this and that. And, that's another thing I got from independent media. Is that true? I don't know. How the fuck can you know? How can anybody know what's real or not? So I focus on your own shit. Like I said, if you have somebody you think can do a good job, promote them. Give them the press instead of keep giving Trump the press, maybe. Because, everybody gave Trump the press the first time and he got back in office. And just because he looks like he might be getting impeached doesn't mean he's going to get impeached. And then all of a sudden it's going to be too late. He's acquitted of all charges, and the election's here, and all we heard about was fucking Trump over and over and over again. That could be the play, too. That could be part of the play. And I'll pretend I'm impeached. This way, no one's going to hear about anybody else. Everybody, all my opponents are going to focus on the fact that I'm unfit because of all these things I'm impeached. No one's going to have to come looking for my dirty laundry because I'm going to put my dirty laundry right out there for everybody to grab, right? And they're all going to grab it and bash my name. And right before, primaries, whatever, I don't know how it really works, I'm not going to lie. But right before the first election or whatever, whenever it does, I'm going to fucking, boom, I'm innocent. So everything all these motherfuckers had against me this whole time has gone. And I'm a free man. And all everybody's been talking about was me. Me. So who are they going to vote for? Fucking me. You don't even need to cheat with that shit. That's the best publicity a motherfucker can get. This is why I say he's got that deceivingly smart gene. And I'm hoping to God I'm wrong about this. And like I said before, I hope if he did any of these atrocious, heinous acts, that he does not become president again and that he is held accountable for it. Because whether he's held accountable for it now or later, he will be held accountable for it. But I don't want to see any good journalist or independent media people or anybody I look up to or anybody get torn down or because in our society today, if one thing is, let's say you come out with a statement, there's a bunch of different pieces of that statement, and it's okay, this seems real, it seems truthful, but then one piece of that is wrong, then they throw the whole fucking baby with the bathwater out. The whole thing is gone. And I'd hate to see anybody that I look up to or like or I love listening to or anything like that get torn up or torn down or called out on this shit. And then, because even though, let's say he gets proven innocent and all this, but he's not going to be innocent. He's not innocent. It's going to be doctored. It's going to be fake. It's going to be all this shit. But it won't matter anymore because it's going to be, well, you said he did this wrong last time. They proved him wrong. And what more can we do? And you're just bitter. You're just butthurt and all this shit. And it's going to be, no, this is real. This is true. And it probably is. But what can you do? We either got to find the real fucking dirt that he's got, or we got to promote someone else. We got to forget about his whole bullshit that he's trying to run. And like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the motherfucker gets impeached. I hope everything I say is just tomorrow. It's just like, holy fuck, Corey, you were wrong. Because I'm just one person wrong. One person, me, I can handle this. I can shoulder that. I could be wrong about this. And I could have people laugh at me and not listen to my shit again. And Trump's out of the picture and someone good gets put in there. I could handle that. I could shoulder that. And I hope to God that's what happens. This is not a prediction or anything I want to be right about whatsoever. Okay, so if that happens, then fuck yeah. You know what? I'll probably even try to make that happen through, magical shit. But I wanted to throw this vibe out here that I got. It's just the pictures that came to my head, and I could be interpreting it completely wrong. It could be, when I got pulled over by the cop and the impeachment, it just means that Trump's going to get fucking caught. It's just a matter of time. It could be that because, it was a matter of time until I got caught, went to jail. So that's what it could have meant. I could be getting it all fucking wrong. And I hope to God I am. Hope to God I'm deadly, seriously, extremely, utterly, completely wrong about this. I hope it's not some big fucking Trojan horse looking, red herring fucking dodging fucking deceptive fucking shit move he's trying to do like a child, like I did, And that's the thing, if it is, it'll still be a matter of time because guys like me who think they're smart enough to outsmart people, if they get away with it too many times, they get cocky and then they do something stupid thinking it's okay, I'll get away with it, and then that's when this shit happens. So maybe that's what's happening now too. Maybe he's been so cocky from being this guy that I think he is, and he's gotten too cocky and he's making mistakes, and then really that's what's about to happen. These are the mistakes about to kick him in the ass, and God, I hope that's the case. Like I said, I'm not for or against Trump. I can't know or not know what he's done, good or bad, because you got one side saying he's doing all this and he's got one side saying he's doing all this. And I respect people on both sides. I've listened to people on both sides, unfortunately. And that's why I choose not to pick an opinion. Because to me, it almost feels like I either got to pick this guy or I got to pick this guy. And I don't want to pick either one. Because I like both of them. I just don't agree with either one of their political stances. Does that make me a bad person? Does that make me somebody you should hate? Because I'm not agreeing with you on something? I'm not going to go vote for, I can't vote for or against. And I'm on here saying, I don't know if he's good or bad. I'm saying I think he's doing something dirty. I think, and he's making everybody think he's dirty. And he's going to either show proof he's not dirty or doctor something as not dirty or actually be not dirty. And then throw it in everybody's faces. And everybody will have to back the fuck off. Like I did with the cops. It wasn't long, but they backed off for about 3 months. You know what I mean? Especially when I was going towards my town. When I was going away from my town was a different story. Because obviously, if I'm leaving Cornwall on the highway, it's more likely I'm doing something than if I'm coming back to Cornwall. You know what I mean? That cop that pulled me over almost at Cornwall is a fucking idiot. But anyways. Well, I mean, I came back with 20 grand, 40 grand a lot of times, depending. If I went to fucking Pembroke or something like that, I got fucking like $1,200 to $1,600 a run. And then if I was going to... if I was only going to somewhere like Prescott, I was getting about $500 or $600 or whatever. But for the cases that were in the car, 24 to 40 cases in the car, $300 a pop. You do the math. So there's quite a bit of coin in the car, right? Or sometimes I use vans, sometimes I use U-Hauls, shit like that, right? So, there's a good chance to pull me back with the money. But the guys didn't always pay. Sometimes we owed them. Sometimes, they were running a tab. Sometimes they had to get started, whatever. Sometimes they just drop it off and my boss is going up later, whatever the case was. I didn't always bring the money back. Point was, that'd be the reason they'd pull me on the way home and why they opened the glove box more than the trunk on the way back. So I'm calling them stupid, but really, I'm the one not thinking about all the variables. But anyways, so like I said, those are the main ideas I want to throw out there today in this thing. I'm not for or against Trump, okay? Not at all. I really think he's doing some bad things because I'm hearing it from all sides now. Well, I'm starting to hear from all sides. Now, I'm also hearing good things that he may or may not have done. But, could there be a different story going on in these countries that are saying these bad things happen? Possibly, but some of the people that are telling me the bad things that are happening, I trust them, Maybe that's my fault. Maybe, because I said you shouldn't trust anybody, and now I'm trusting people that I don't know. But be leery. Don't ever buy into the media that the sky's falling. Don't ever buy into the media that this is going to happen, because it can all just be a big misdirect. Even by the people that are telling you this shit. If someone's telling you that something's going to happen, you know what I mean? What's the fastest way to get a kid to not do something? You tell them to not do it. Or how's the fastest way to get somebody to do something? You tell them to not do it, right? Well, there's a lot of this shit implied in media. There's a lot of reasons why they tell you that something's happening or something's not happening. It's either for something to not happen or for something to happen. There's power in our mind. Everybody needs to understand that. There's power in our mind. Our mind is powerful. What we focus on can happen, all right? But I'm not going to give that away to anybody or anybody else's political views or anybody else's fucking government or anybody else's bullshit. That is my fucking power for me to use. Not for anybody to try to impeach Trump. Not for anybody to try to re-elect Trump. Not for anybody to make the sky fall. Not for anybody to make weathers or cataclysms or the end of the world or the end of times. Not for anybody else but me and my family. My mind power is for me. So if you're getting mad at me from what I said here today because I don't follow your views, well, if you're a magician or a magical person, it's because you know that I'm not using my mind power to fuel your ends or give you energy. So I'm sorry about that, but this is for me to use and not for you to have. And the only message I'm trying to put out here is for people to watch out, because sometimes the most obvious thing ends up being wrong, right? It's what makes good books. Trojan horse, red herring's not a book. Red herring is the thing you call. The guy who looks most guilty in the book, everybody assumes is guilty, and then all of a sudden he's not fucking guilty. I've seen that play out too many times in my life. Too many times. And I'm only 33. That's not old. I don't got much knowledge. I'm not going to lie. I haven't been in this game that long, so I'm not trying to go against anybody, but I do know that my mind is my power for me to use, and I'm not letting anybody else fucking use it towards their ends. Now, you want to fucking call me and say, hey, I want your mind power for this. Do you think this is a worthy thing? Then fuck yeah, I'll work with you or something like that. But don't try to trick me into using it in some stupid, devious way like the fucking media does. Fuck you. I ain't fucking doing that. I ain't giving my mind power to anybody. This is my fucking mind power for me to use for the benefit of my fucking family. For my fucking life. And that's what people need to focus on. The fact that your mind is power. What you focus on happens. What you give energy to, whatever. What you focus on persists, or I forget the fucking little terms and shit that people use in magic. But they're there. You know them. I've said them before and other people have said them. And I'm not giving that away to anybody. No matter what fucking means they use. You can fucking line up all the fucking evidence you want. It doesn't make it real. I ain't going to focus on it. I'll listen to it. And I'll come up with a conclusion. And if I think it warrants whatever ends, then yeah, I'll put emotion to it and fucking bring it into reality for you. No fucking problem. But fucking pay me if that's what you want. Otherwise, you're just as bad as the fucking media. So go fuck yourself if that's what you're trying to do. Because I ain't giving that shit away to nobody. And that's the best I could say it. And anybody listening to this who listens to my shit, you shouldn't do it either. Don't jump on board full tilt with any bullshit. Research it. If you think it's worth it, then you can, give power to it. It's like somebody who's taught you something. And I've said before, if you can't afford to buy a program or something, give them energy. Send them something etherically or whatever, give a little sacrifice to the gods and tell the gods to, if they could, hook Birch up with this, then hook him up with it, or hook Frater up with this, hook him up with it, or Grant Morrison, or Greg Braden, or Max Egan, or any of the motherfuckers I put on here that I like. I've done it all with them. Not only that, they have channels I put on their channels. I got this idea from Birch, and I just go through their list, and I just play. If I'm the only one home, I'll leave the sound on there because I like listening to stuff, and things click after you listen to a video 2 or 3 times. But I give them all a fucking like, and I give them all a fucking play. You know what I mean? Because there's power and there's money in that, and focus, energy, and blah 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 blah. But anybody listening to this, you should have the same fucking moral standard. You should have the same idea. If you're into magic and you're learning to be bipolar, depolarized, all right, and trying to be between, well, you need to shut off the media and get away from this shit, Once in a while, if you want to watch it. And like I said, I most of what I listen to when it comes to this actually comes from Birch, believe it or not, because, I like Birch. So I watch his Witterson show, and, I owe a lot to him. I learned a lot from him, so I got to support his show. So I may not watch it the day of, and I don't always watch it on speakers unless I watch it on YouTube, but I watch every one of his episodes because, I haven't bought anything from him. So the least I can do is give him a like and give him a fucking listen on every fucking thing and support him. And that's what I'm going to do. But that being said, you shouldn't just adopt anybody's fucking policies or beliefs as if they're the fucking Bible, do your own fucking research. And yeah, if you come to the same conclusions, then holy shit, go for it. Do something about it. But if you come to a different conclusion, well, then you have an option, and it doesn't mean you have to be opposed to one of your mentors or one of your teachers or anything like that. It just means you have a different opinion on a different topic, and different people are going to have different beliefs and shit like that. Technically, we're supposed to be getting rid of our belief systems and shit like that, or at least the ones that don't serve us anymore. But there's a lot of shit that this is a hard topic to get into, and I'm no guru or anything to try to tell people what to believe and what not to believe. I just want to throw the idea out there, not saying that it's true or false, but I want to throw the idea out there that there's a good chance that the motherfucker out there might be a little bit like me, and if he's like me, then I would have done something like this if whether the case was, right? If you look at it in the terms of the last thing I just said, if it's like, okay, well, I got a lot of dirty laundry, let's say. I'm Trump. Yeah, I got a lot of dirty laundry. New election coming up. I got all these people opposing me. What are they going to do? They're going to try to find my dirty laundry, possibly. That might be one of the tactics. All right, so what do I do instead? Well, I fucking throw out a bunch of conspiracies or a bunch of things that did wrong. I'm not going to prove my taxes. This whistleblower, 2 whistleblowers, this shit with Turkey, the shit with Giuliani, all this shit, okay? Throw all this out there. To the fucking independent media, to the real media and all that. Let them eat it up. Let my opponents eat it up. Let them focus on this. Let them go out there and say what they stand for and say, Trump, what can we say about Trump? He's about to be impeached, so fuck him, They're not even going to focus on anything. They won't even maybe try to dig in any deeper and find his real dirt. You know what I mean? That's what this just came to me as doing this, so this is probably very likely too. In my view anyways, things that come to me randomly like this end up kind of working out to be true, or if I look it up later, it is true and shit like that. But anyways, so that's what he's doing. He's throwing all that out there. And right before people start voting, it's all going to get expunged. It's going to evaporate. He's going to be proven not guilty. He's going to be innocent. And then everybody who went against him, who never bothered to get dirt on him, well, they're going to have no more time to do it, right? It's just going to look like they're grasping for straws. And even if they do find something dirty after he's been through the ringer with all this fake shit he put out there that he's proven not guilty of, even if someone else comes with an allegation after, it's just going to be thrown out. No one's even going to pay attention to it. They'll be like, okay, no. He's already had 4 allegations, proven innocent every fucking time. No. You're just grasping the straws. And it might even be legit. And that's what I don't want to happen. I don't want something legit to come out on Trump that he should get removed out of office. That isn't something he released on purpose. And I'm not saying that's what this is. There's a good chance this shit is legit and he should be impeached. And by God, if that's what happens, I'll be so happy and I'll gladly delete these episodes or never put them out there or just put a public apology out to everybody and anybody and say I was completely wrong and apologize. And I'm a big enough man to do that. Like I said, depolarized. I'm in the middle. Not completely. You could tell in my voice I'm not completely depolarized, right? But at the same token, you can kind of tell I swing both ways a lot. Point is, I don't give a shit if I'm right or wrong. It doesn't matter. None of this is going to change anything to me. I'm worried about some of the people that are out there making claims and stuff like that. And I just don't want them to fucking something bad to happen to them. It worries me because these people are important to me, you know? And that's why I'm making this, because I just don't want something bad happening to some of these important people that I really like. And because if they stopped making things and doing things and, you know, then I would be lost, and a lot of people wouldn't get some very important knowledge. And you know, there's a bigger component to this. You know, that if some of these people end up becoming, oh, you're wrong, you know, and people don't like them anymore, or something like that over this shit, then that's a bad thing, because these people have the potential of helping millions and millions and millions of people. And I don't want to see them lose. I don't want to see them get torn through the mud. I don't want to see them get discredited. That's what I was looking for. Discredited. I don't want to see anybody get discredited over this shit, whether it's legit or not legit. But anyway, so that's what I think he might. That's one aspect I think he might be doing, and I think that's why he threw out this fake shit, because he's just going to be like, ha, I was innocent, bitches, in which he's not. It's going to be doctored, or it's all fake from the get-go, so there's nothing to be doctored. Or the allegations against him, he's just going to fucking whip up some fake fucking documentation to say it's all legit, and that's it. You know what I mean? I didn't mean to rhyme there, but point is, that was the first part, and the second part is he's doing it for his campaign. So everybody focuses on him. At the same time as everybody's focused on him, his opponents aren't looking for extra dirt or extra bad shit or actually trying to tear him down or whatever the case is, and no one's trying to uplift any other candidate. They're all just focused on Trump, and then boom, all the allegations, he's not guilty, and then now it's time to vote. Well, who's everybody gonna vote for? The guy who's innocent. It's the guy who everybody went against, and he fucking surpassed it all again. He did it last election, he does it this election. Everybody's gonna vote for that guy. He's the savior, he's the underdog. It's innate, it's instinctive. Everybody wants to go for the underdog. It'd be different if everybody opposing him turned out to be right and he becomes the villain, then the other guys will win, because that's also instinctive. But if the underdog, who everybody's against, turns out to be right and innocent, then everybody's going to vote for the man. This is his play. This is what I think he's doing. God, I hope I'm fucking wrong. But this is what I feel, so I have to say it. I have an obligation to put it out there. Just like Bert has an obligation to put out all the information he has on why we shouldn't vote Trump in and why Trump's a bad man. So I'm not opposed to anything he said, so please don't get that vibe from this whatsoever. I think, and I've always thought Birch is doing an absolute service to everybody. From his teachings, from his free Ask Uncle Birch's, to his free Witch School videos on YouTube, to all his paid programs. Everybody should check out Uncle Birch 1309, or sorry, Freakfield 1309. Sorry, I don't want anybody to think I'm against him or anything like that. Because, like I said, I watch all his shows, and I've watched like 3 of them in a row today, and maybe that's why this has all come from. All I wanted to do was throw out that idea, and it's not opposed to anything he said or anything like that, because he would know a hell of a lot more than me, because I'm over here in Canada, and he's actually in California, so I'm not against him. Now that's out of the way, I think I'm going to let this fucking go. But remember, polarity, they're using it against you, they're using it for you. The only way to have polarity not used against you is to be in the middle. You know, when they try to push you with the plus, or try to pull you with the minus, you just walk between both of them and say, fuck you. You can't fucking move me. I can go frontwards, I can go backwards, but fuck you. You can't do anything to me. And that's what I'm doing. I don't give 2 fucks. You know, like I said, I care about the people that might have been harmed, and I care about the people that may be harmed or discredited. But as far as the media and who is the president and all that, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference. You know, I'm sure if you looked at every president in the past, you probably could have impeached him. You know, if fucking Clinton got impeached for a fucking blowjob, I mean, come on, it's a blowjob. Who gives a fuck? I don't think that's right. I don't like Clinton. So don't think that, right? And I don't believe in cheating on your wife, but that's a different matter, right? You lose your wife or whatever your wife says, you got to be impeached. I guess he's supposed to show a big higher moral authority and all this and that. So, whatever. I mean, that is what it is. But yeah, if you get impeached for a blowjob, then fucking certainly you should be impeached for all the shit that Trump's done. Just the racist fucking comments alone. You're supposed to be this leader of this country that's got all these different races, and yet you're being racist to a big group of them. Whether or not they're minorities or not is irrelevant. Still hate crimes. If I do that at a job, I can be let go and potentially charged. So, yeah, he should be held to a higher moral standard. And if getting a BJ from one of your colleagues is enough to be impeached, then certainly it shows that. And that definitely puts in perspective all the other terrible allegations that are going against him right now. Tenfold. I mean, he shouldn't even have to go through a process. He should just be pulled out of there. Fuck. You know what I mean? Where's the fucking hook? The stage hook to pull that cocksucker, that actor out of there and drop the fucking curtain. He's done. Because that's what it is. It's a fucking stage, people. I hope I got that across. Anyways, if I can, I'm going to put on some shit relevant to this, like the TV dude and a few other things. If not, it's just going to be me in this ranting shit. And please, if I offended anybody, I'm sorry. And I'm not against or opposed to anybody. All I wanted to do was speak my mind, speak what came to me. Those are the two things that came to me. I'm not opposed to anybody. I know some people have been in politics and actively so in politics their whole life, and that's not me. So maybe that's why I can't understand it, and it's not for me to understand. And I'm not going to say their views and the shit is wrong. I just worry sometimes about anybody making bold statements that they turn out to be incorrect, them being discredited for it, or believing something so true that when it comes to be false, that they're also discredited or no one takes them seriously anymore. I just don't want to see that happen to anybody, especially anybody I like and enjoy. So, but yeah, ceremonial witch out. Once again, I'm from Canada. I have my own election to do, which I'm not even fucking part of. I can show you the ballot that I got for the people I got to vote for. Maybe I'll put that on as a picture, but I ain't fucking voting for nobody, motherfucker, because none of them are going to do a goddamn thing for me. None of them. Anyways, have yourself a great day. Remember, don't fucking vote. I'm just kidding. Vote if you believe in it. Vote if you think there's real change, and uplift the person you want. If you think there's somebody in there that can actually make a change, then uplift them. Put them in the public eye. Promote them every chance you get. Give them free publicity. Start a podcast just about them. Do whatever it takes, because whether you're tearing him down or building him up, if you've given any energy to Trump, it's energy. He's going to use that energy to his benefit. And if I'm right about him being a fucking magician or a hermetic, somebody in hermetics or whatever, okay, an old sun cult, whatever the case is, if he's in line with the Pope or Israel, some Jewish magic, some pretty powerful fucking magic, right? And he's right up there with them, and Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, buddy, come on. I mean, it's all aligned, right? And you look at him, and he kind of has that look to him, so I don't want to sound insensitive or racist or anything like that. I got nothing against any Judaism, Jewish people at all whatsoever. Actually, really like that religion, probably more than my own when I was a Christian, to be honest. So, but the point is, that's some powerful shit. So if you're giving him energy, he's going to know how to transmute it, or at least the people pulling your strings will. So give the person the energy that you want to win, and they will win. The more energy they get, they will win. If you do sigils and magic for that person to win, that's the best defense is a good offense, right? Stop trying to, I don't know. That's a solution, because I like to say, don't go out there and just fucking say how the system's broken without giving a solution. At least offer a solution, however small or petty or shitty it might be. At least offer a solution. So that's my solution. That if Trump is doing all this shit and it's all play, and he's just doing it so his competitors or his opposition doesn't have time to find his dirty laundry, and then by the time he's put innocent and everybody sees him as, holy fuck, all the odds were against him and he made it again, and underdog and this and that, and they all start voting for him. Well, at least if you've uplifted one of the other candidates to a point where other people saw it and other people reacted and other people are on board with that, then you got a good chance of countering him. You know what I mean? Because just giving him more energy is not going to help. Not going to help. I mean, if you're doing it for your own energy, to get energy through the polarity and, the topic being, very polarizing itself, well, then, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to get involved. I mean, keep doing your fucking thing. It's not fair that he gets all the energy. Take it from him, fuck, if you can. You can find a way to do that and let me know. I'll help you out. But But yeah, that's my message for today, okay? Uplift a candidate, a person you want. Like I said, I don't believe in politics. I don't believe in voting and all that. I do believe in lesser evils, though, and shit like that. But I believe that, that's a place where people go, no matter how good they may be in the beginning, they're going to become corrupted, no matter what. The only good king is the king that doesn't know he's a good king, King Solomon. All right? I'm not saying this is literal or a true story, but King Solomon was granted his powers and all that because whenever God or the angel, I can't remember, but whatever divine force came up to King Solomon and asked him, what did he want? Now, paraphrasing once again because I don't remember, but he didn't ask for money. He didn't ask to be wise. He didn't ask for strength or powers. He asked, and once again I'm paraphrasing, but he asked how he can be a better king to his people, something to that effect, or the knowledge to be a better king to better people, okay, to his people. His priority, basically what I'm trying to say is, his priority wasn't about him, wasn't about what he could get, it wasn't a selfish priority, it wasn't about what I can become. He didn't ask for long life, he didn't ask for riches, he didn't ask for a bunch of different wives, or pussy every night, or drugs, or getting high, or a bunch of kids, or whatever the case, a house, car, all this shit. He didn't ask for any of that, okay? He asked for how he could be a better king. To a certain extent, like I said, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something to that. He asked how he can be, for the knowledge to be a better king. And the response he got from the angel, the divine being, whatever it was, okay, sorry, it was a long time ago I read this, but the reply he got was, I'll give you that, and because you didn't ask for it, because you're coming from a place pure of heart, we're going to give you a long life, we're going to give you powers, we're going to give you riches, we're going to give you everything else because you didn't ask for it, because you're so goddamn good inside, you motherfucker, you're so fucking beautiful and great inside, you're such a good goddamn motherfucking leader that you deserve all the things that you didn't even think about getting, that your mind is so not corrupt that you didn't ask for these things, that's why you get to have it. You get to be a leader, you get to be a good leader, and you get to live a long time, you get to be fucking rich because it's not what you want. It reminds me of what Birch and Frater said. People that want to be a teacher, that want to go out here and preach to people are not the people that should be, because they're going to abuse power and basically that. And you're ready to be a teacher whenever people start coming up to you and asking you and all that. And I'm not saying I'm a teacher or anything like that. I'm just trying to reiterate a small version or correspondent to this, you know what I mean? The things, it's hard to put into words, but the things that if people want only power and riches and all that, they're never going to get it. They're never fit to get it. And if they do get it, they're going to kill themselves with it or bury themselves, or they're just going to lose it just as fast, right? That's the thing. And that's what a good king does. That's what a good leader does. So if you want to be a good leader or you want to promote a good leader, then do that, and do that in a better way than trying to tear somebody else down. Not saying he doesn't deserve to be tear down. He absolutely does, but you're just going to give him more energy. Fight fire with something else that is better than fire, like earth. Water sometimes works too on fire, I guess. But yeah, I think that's my statement for the day. But yeah, I thought that was amazing about King Solomon. And it's a symbolic story, but that's how people need to be. If you want to be rich, if you want to have long life and good health, then you need to be thinking about others first, how you can help others first. And then you're going to get those things. They're just going to be given to you. All the things everybody wants, they're trying so hard to get, if they just focused outside of themselves on other people, on trying to make maybe the world a better place. I don't know how you want to interpret that. Okay, that's up to the reader. And it's different for everybody what that statement, that thing that King Solomon asked for, right? He asked to be a better leader. Okay, so for me it might be, how can I become the best husband, the best father, best worker, best Corey LeBlanc to my whole family and my community, my society around me? How can I be a better person that benefits everybody around me? How can I help everybody know their potential? Something to that effect, and then I might get granted along the way. Okay, well, first I'll get healing, I'll be able to last longer because I'm putting out a good message and more people need to hear it. And if I die, they won't hear it. And the next thing, well, I might need money because if I do my community, then I might need to go further and farther and spread my message. So the next thing I'll get was a little bit of money, right? So, you know what I mean? So then I get going further and then I get popularity and status and the big house and then maybe I get some power to, maybe some actual power, magical power to help do some real change or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that part's not true, but you can see the progression, right? How I had to live longer so I can keep saying my message, and then how after I got through my town and my province and then my country, I need more money, more money, more money. So it's going to come to me because I'm doing something that warrants it, not just I want to pay my bills and my job's not enough because I buy everything too fucking fast because I can't turn off the TV. Well, why do you think you deserve money? If you don't have the discipline to turn off the TV and take back your mind, then how are you going to have the discipline to have 10 grand, 20 grand, 40 grand, 100 grand, $250,000? How the fuck would you be able to handle that if you can't even turn off the goddamn TV and read a few books and do some ritual and fucking be grateful for the shit you got? If you can't do that, then why do you deserve a bunch of fucking money to fall in your lap? You don't. Spirit knows that. The divine knows that. So do the fucking shit in the right order, and you'll get everything you want. Anyways, I'm coming off a little bit prickish, and I want to stop because I don't really like the way I sound anymore. I'm starting to sound like a dick. So, anyways, hope everybody has a good day, and I hope I didn't offend anybody. Ceremonial Witch, Corey LeBlanc, out skis.
Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. He brought her to the city of David until he finished building his palace and the temple of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people, however, were still sacrificing at the high places, because a temple had not yet been built for the name of the Lord. Solomon showed his love for the Lord by walking according to the statutes of his father David, except that he offered sacrifices and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices, for that was the most important high place, and Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said,
"Ask for whatever you want me to give you."
Solomon answered, "You have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people, and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him,
"Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both riches and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in my ways and obey my statutes and commands as David your father did, I will give you a long life."
Then Solomon awoke, and he realized it had been a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he gave a feast for all his court. Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said,
"My lord, this woman and I live in the same house. I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side, while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning, I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely, in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born."
The other woman said,
"No, the living one is my son. The dead one is yours."
But the first one insisted,
"No, the dead one is yours. The living one is mine."
and so they argued before the king. The king said,
"This one says my son is alive and your son is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive."
Then the king said,
"Bring me a sword."
So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order.
"Cut the living child in 2 and give half to one and half to the other."
The woman whose son was alive was filled with compassion for her son, and said to the king,
"Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him."
But the other said,
Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two.
Then the king gave his ruling.
Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother.
When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice.
Open like CBS, deep divers. Why you can't trust the media. Uh-oh. Did you know deep divers in 1983 in America, over 90% of the media was owned by 50 corporations? But right now, 6 corporations own over 90% of the media. It's an illusion of choice. They control what you see, what you read. They help form your perception. But wait a minute, perception creates reality. That's right. So the 6 corporations that control over 90% of the media, CBS, GE, News Corp, Viacom, Time Warner, Walt Disney, and Walt Disney owned ABC, Pixar, Miramax. I could go on. Viacom owned BET, MTV, right, deep divers? So it's an illusion of choice. And that's why what's helped me along my journey, deep divers, is to always question everything I see on the media and everything I read by the media. Did you know in ancient Greece you had the goddess Medea? And that's where we get the word media from. And her trait was cunning and also to manipulate. So that's what the media do. They give you fake news and you believe it to be true, but they are altering your perception. As a psychologist and criminologist, deep divers, I always take everything the media tell me with a pinch of salt. Jeffrey Epstein, right? Apparently he commits suicide. This sex trafficker, pedophile. But wait a minute, how do you know? Because he was about to expose a lot of powerful people in this whole pedophile ring. And conveniently, he just commits suicide. Well, deep divers, you got to put a big question mark. We don't believe you. You need more people, right? The media, they will tell you things that aren't true. So every single day, deep divers, make sure you are questioning the media, because the media's job is not to give you the truth. It is to hide the truth from you. For the truth, you can only find the truth, deep divers, within yourself.
Fucking right, Ralph.
The television tells lies to your vision. It's time for you to start telling your own vision, and now you become empowered, and now, well, you'll just say, feels so good to be alive, baby. Can I get a hello? Beautiful deep divers were just, woo, breathing in that good ass prana, baby. Keep that third eye open. Have a beautiful day.
I fucking love him. I fucking love him.
Brown.
Peace, infinite waters diving deep once again. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, social network junkies, and media addiction. I had 2 Facebook accounts, and one has already been deleted, and I'm contemplating whether or not to delete the second one. But at the same time, I realize that it's a great way to keep in touch with people. And when we talk of social media, social network junkies, how many of us are spending all of our time on Facebook, on Twitter, and all of these things? And I'm just realizing the beauty of Facebook in connecting the world together, in meeting friends that we haven't seen for ages. But at the same time, is it taking over our lives? Are we becoming more afraid to actually talk to real people, to talk to people outside of our homes? And okay, you have 700 or you have 4,000 or you have 5,000 friends on Facebook, but how many of these people do you really know? More so, how many of these people do you really want to know? And for me, I'm just realizing that you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. And especially when we talk about our Facebook interactions with people, a lot of it, I feel we only have few genuine people that we can actually say, okay, these are my real friends on Facebook. And if you leave Facebook, how many people are going to be saying, okay, where did you go? Where did you disappear? And for me, the more and more as I'm seeing, even when we talk of the rise of technology, living in this transhumanist world where technology is becoming an extension of ourselves. A lot of us, we can't live one day without being on these social media networks, on all of these great sites. But essentially, what's going to happen when you travel somewhere where you need to be without it for a couple of months? People are going to start having withdrawal symptoms. And for me, I've just realized that I use all of these things as a tool. I'm not one of these people to say, okay, Facebook is horrible. I don't really feel it is. I feel it depends how you use it. Essentially, a lot of people say that being a social network junkie, people are tracking your every move. Why would you want to give personal information to the whole world? But at the same time, I always say it depends how you play it. Because a lot of people have had great relations through Facebook. But essentially, when it becomes a distraction, when we forget that human interaction is the most essential part of communication, not just through a computer screen, but actually meeting the people we're talking to. And when we talk of media addiction as well, on the flip side of it, a lot of us, we're addicted to bad news. A lot of people say, oh, why don't you talk about more depressing things? Because essentially, the more you talk about things, the more you allow them to become your reality. And obviously, they do exist, the horrors of the world. But essentially, when we're just addicted to drama and bad news, then essentially, we also have to realize we also have an illness. When we can't celebrate the beauty of life as well. They always say bad news sells, and a lot of us, we've become addicted to peace. Lakes and infinite waters, diving deep once again. Beautiful deep divers, we are here. I hope your day is going good. It is a beautiful day. Sun is out. The cat down the road is sunbathing. Now, deep divers, this video is all about controlling your energy. I'm about to share with you how I control my energy every single day and how this has helped me to become my greatest version. Mastering your energy is so essential to become your greatest version. Now, deep divers, you've probably experienced days when you feel so elated, like so full of joy, and then days where you feel really tired, depressed even, full of anxiety. And this has everything to do with energy. And if you can learn how to control your energy, you will change your entire life for the better. And we ain't even had breakfast yet. Can I get a hello? Now, wonderful deep divers, let me share with you what's helped me along my journey to control my energy. The ancients knew everything is energy. Nothing is solid. Everything is energy. And quantum physicists have discovered that the smallest particles are not atoms. They are actually subatomic particles, which are even smaller than atoms. And this is energy. It's all energy. One of the 7 Hermetic principles is mentalism. Everything is mental. Everything is energy. So if we can learn to change the energy, we can literally change our entire life. Let's start with the 7 highways. To control your energy, you have to know about the 7 highways. Deep divers. The eyes are the windows to the soul. These are the first 2 highways. We take in information, which is energy, through our eyes. We also give out energy through our eyes. Okay? The other two highways are ears. Left ear, right ear. We listen to the cat down the road singing. The 5th highway, eating a whole bunch of grapes, baby, 7-day vegan challenge, our mouth.
This is the story of Medea, a story of a husband's betrayal and a wife's gruesome revenge. Medea's husband, the hero Jason, was power-hungry and decided to leave his wife, Medea, so he could marry the princess of Corinth instead. Medea was exiled by King Creon, the king of Corinth. However, she begged for one more day to pack her and her children's belongings. King Creon granted her just one day, and one day only. The choir watched the tears fall down Medea's face as she cried over the fact that Jason had left her. Accusations fly left and right between a once loving husband and wife. "You could have told me," Medea would have shouted. "You would have stopped me," Jason would have retorted back, before adding that he doesn't really love the princess. When they stopped, Jason left angry, and Medea began plotting her revenge. A revenge that would make Jason regret ever leaving her for the princess. Medea knows her plan of revenge, but she doesn't know if she can pull it through with it. With a perfect timing, King Aegeus, king of Athens, a friend of Medea's, arrived. "Alas, Aegeus, with the worst scoundrel I have been married." "What do you mean? Explain me your sorrow." Medea explains the sorrow, her situation, to King Aegeus, whom grants her exile and swears to let her stay in his house. In return, she promises to give him herbs so he can have a child. When King Aegeus leaves, Medea reveals a plan of revenge to the choir. To her are sent the children, with arms full of gifts to soothe her mind against them, a lovely wedding dress, a diadem of gold. And when she dresses herself with this splendor, will she and everyone who touches her have a horrifying death. Such terrible poison is the gift dipped in. When Medea calls for Jason yet again to apologize, she managed to persuade Jason into letting her children stay. She calls in her children and tells them to bring the princess the gifts she has prepared. She tells the children to forget whatever has happened between her and Jason, to take his hand and follow him, because he will take care and protect them. And thus the children leaves for the castle with Jason. The princess adorned herself in the gifts from Medea and her children. But suddenly, she burst into flames and died a horrible death. Her father, King Creon, heard about this fast and rushed to her side. He cradled his beautiful daughter in his arms, only to suffer the very same death as her. In the mind of Medea, the revenge she is getting wouldn't be complete without taking one of the most important things from Jason, his children, his only means to keep his bloodline going, her final way to hurt him. So she kills her children and makes sure Jason sees what she has done, and then she flees on a wagon pulled by dragons. When reading the story of Medea, you will come across a term famously known as the queer theory, which is basically the question: would the story be different if Medea was a man? Yes, it would. But why? Why would it be different if Medea was a man and not a woman? Also, would it do any different if the outcome of the story wasn't like it was? Would it be different if Medea in reality hadn't killed as many people as she had? Again, yes, probably. So, the story does end in favor of Medea. However, she still lost a lot, like her husband, her home, and her children. However,
female hand, so that's about all I can tell, but there's no address or name on it. Users of this medicine, initiates I should say, refer to ayahuasca as she, because this back with the archetypal So I'm going to read you something. I get a lot of mail, and I don't know where I got this. I've been a lot of different places in the last week. And this showed up at one of them, and I'm going to read it to you. I have no idea what to make of it. It's written in a female hand, so that's about all I can tell, but there's no address or name on it. This isn't a question, but a comment, or more accurately, perhaps, a message. I spent this past weekend in an ayahuasca ceremony, which for those of you who don't know, is a South American visionary plant medicine. Some of you may roll your eyes at this, But ayahuasca brings you into direct contact with the archetypal realm of being. Users of this medicine, initiates I should say, refer to ayahuasca as she, because the spirit of the plant is decidedly feminine. An encounter with ayahuasca is an encounter with the great mother of creation, the goddess, the void from which all things come, the feminine counterpart of Logos. Dr. Peterson, you appeared in one of my ayahuasca visions. Might account for why I've been rather fatigued lately. Dr. Peterson, you appeared in one of my ayahuasca visions, and I asked her, who is Jordan Peterson? What is he doing? Which is something I'd really like to know as well. And she responded with crystalline clarity, quote, he is here to invoke and initiate the divine masculine principle on earth at this time. So I'm up here to thank you deeply and profoundly on behalf of the Great Mother herself, the goddess, the divine feminine principle, who has been eagerly awaiting the awakening of the masculine principle into divinity and service. So, get a letter like that every day. Actually, I get a letter or two like that every day. So, what went through my head when I read this, and this is, of course, a completely crazy parallel, but, one of the things I learned to do as a psychotherapist was just to tell people who were talking to me what came into my head. It isn't what I'm thinking exactly, because that's not exactly the same thing, What comes into your head is more like a dream. It comes unbidden. It's like your imagination. If you're thinking, there seems to be like a voluntary element of that, right? Who God only knows how we think, but it seems partly voluntary at least. And Carl Jung thought about it like a dialogue between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. There was a continual dialogue. But when things just pop into your mind, it's not much different than walking into a room and having something there, which is an observation I also derived from Jung, by the way, because he pointed out, quite rightly, that people don't really think, that thoughts appear to them. Now, you can think, because you can take the thoughts that appear to you, and then you can subject them to criticism and elaboration and so on, instead of just assuming that they're true right off the bat. But people often don't do that. Something just pops into their head, and then they assume that it's true. Anyways, one of the things that I tend to do in psychotherapy is just to tell people what pops into my head, because, well, why? Because then the person that is talking to me gets one person's untrammeled opinion. Not even that, reaction, not opinion. It's not really an opinion, I don't think. An opinion maybe is what I think later, and there's this personal flavor to it. And what popped into my head was the story about Socrates, he had this, when he was being put on trial by the Athenians for corrupting the nation's youth, something I've been accused of, by the way. Although it's not self-evident to me that it's me doing the corrupting. He said that somebody had asked the Delphic Oracle once, and the Delphic Oracle was this retreat that you could go to if you were an ancient Greek citizen, and you'd be there and you'd have a dream, and then you'd go ask the Delphic Oracle to interpret it, and nobody really knows what was up with the Delphic Oracle today, how that worked exactly, but she would interpret your dream in any case. And somebody once asked her who the wisest man in Greece was, and the Delphic Oracle said it was Socrates because he knew he didn't know anything. That's essentially the story. And that popped into my mind. It's a crazy comparison, but, I have a crazy mind, so I guess that's how it works out. So, now one of the things I'm going to do today, which I haven't done before, is I'm going to read you a little bit of, I told you I finished my book last week, and I haven't read it to anyone. I have given it to a couple of friends to review. One person in particular, a screenwriter named Greg Hurwitz, has been unbelievably helpful. He's so fast and so sharp at this sort of thing, and I can send him like a 20-page, dense 20-page manuscript, and he'll rip it to shreds and send it back to me in like 90 minutes. It's just unbelievable. He's so good at that. He's been very helpful, but no one else has seen it apart from my editor, and I haven't read it to anyone. But some of it seemed particularly appropriate for tonight's lecture. So I thought I would start the lecture tonight by reading a little bit of it, and it's from a chapter. It's on the issue of sacrifice as such. This is Abraham and Isaac. This is a very strange Old Testament story, right? This is one of the stories that's contained in the Old Testament that makes modern people think that maybe we should just not have that much to do with the Old Testament per se and at all, and especially with regards, and maybe we shouldn't have anything to do with the God of the Old Testament either, because, I mean, as far as Abraham is concerned, God tells him to sacrifice his own son. Now, it turns out that God was just kidding, so to speak. You know, I'm obviously being flippant, but, you know, it does raise the question, what do you make of a divine being who would require such a thing? Or, conversely, what do you make of Abraham who would have such delusions? Either way, it's a little hard on the, what would you call, modern believability and moral integrity of the Old Testament. But these are very, very strange stories, and they're not what they seem to be, or they are, and they're more. So, we're going to talk a lot about sacrifice tonight. And here's some of the things that I've been thinking about sacrifice. So this book is called 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote for Chaos. And it's coming out in January, which I think I mentioned. And this is from Rule 7, which is do what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And so here's some of the writing I've been doing over the last 3 years on the motif of sacrifice. I'll start with just a brief intro before I read this. It took me a long time to understand what was meant in the Old Testament by sacrifice, which is strange because once I figured it out, it seemed bloody obvious. It seemed like, oh yeah, obviously that's what it means. But lots of times, if you figure something out correctly, it seems self-evident as soon as you figured it out correctly. Well, we'll see how that goes, but you know, it seemed to work for me anyways. I knew that, of course, at least implicitly, I knew of the modern usage of the idea of sacrifice. Everyone understands that motif, is that if you want to make things better in the future, then you make sacrifices in the present. And maybe you even do that multi-generationally. In fact, you most definitely do if you're a good parent. I mean, and I would say that's really particularly typical of immigrants, right? Because immigrants often come from terrible places and have to undergo terrible things to come to a new community where they get a rough reception and have a hard time getting their life going. And a big part of the reason that they do it is to make their lives of their children better. And luckily, when they come to Canada, usually given where they came from, that actually works because where they came from is worse and here is better, even though immigrants often have to struggle to get on their feet again. They have to learn a new language and become enculturated and face the fact that they're not part of the mainstream culture. And, well, many of you know the whole story. So the idea that you make sacrifices for the future and you make sacrifices for your children, and everyone understands that, and it's part of being responsible and mature and shouldering the burden of being properly. And you do that for yourself, too. If you're disciplined, in fact, that's almost what discipline means. Discipline means that you're capable of making sacrifices, because you're not disciplined if you just do something you want more rather than something that you're doing. That's not discipline. Maybe that works, and great. If your life is working out that way, great, man. But that isn't discipline. Discipline is when you want to do something right now, and instead you think, no, I'm going to forestall my gratification, maybe forever, but certainly for a very long period of time, or medium to long period of time, and you concentrate on something that you think will bear fruit in the medium to long run. And so you look into the future, and you decide that by making today a little less impulsively pleasurable, shall we say, you'll make tomorrow a little bit more secure and productive. And then you actually do it too. And that's difficult, you know. And we discussed last week Adam and Eve's discovery of the future, and the revelation of the possibility of the future, including the possibility of tragedy and suffering in the future. And it's our knowledge of the possibility of tragedy and suffering in the future that motivates us to sacrifice in the present, so that we can reduce the unnecessary anxiety and uncertainty and pain that awaits us. Now, that's a negative way of putting it. We're also doing it so that, you know, we can have some joy and we can make life better and all of that. And that's not trivial. But the fundamental issue, especially once you have small children, this fundamental issue is to stave the suffering, the hell off, right? That's what you want to do. That's your primary moral obligation if you're a person who has any... If your eyes are open at all, that's your primary obligation. And so you make the sacrifices that are necessary, and you set up the future. And, well, the motif of sacrifice is there in the Old Testament. But it's so concrete that it's difficult to draw a parallel between the two. At least for me, they didn't align self-evidently. And I don't remember in my rather limited religious education as a child in the United Church, because I went to the United Church till I was about 13. I don't ever remember anybody pointing out that, like, the sacrifices that Cain and Abel were making, or the sacrifice that Abraham was supposed to make, or the sacrifices that people were making to God were the precursors, let's say, the dramatic precursors to the psychological idea of sacrifice that we all hold as civilized people in the modern world. So, although it seems obvious, as I said, once you lay it out, I don't remember that ever being explained to me. And then let me read this. So now that I've sort of introduced it, here's what happened as humanity developed. First were the endless tens or hundreds of thousands of years prior to the emergence of written history and drama. The twin practices of delay and exchange began to emerge slowly and painfully. So here's a cool psychological study. So it's called the marshmallow test. And maybe it's even a reliable study, even though it was done by social psychologists. It's probably replicable. And it's a nice study. So you take small children and you bring them into a room and you put something that they would like in front of them, a marshmallow, and then you torture them, basically. You say, see that marshmallow? And the kid thinks, yeah, man, I see that marshmallow. It's like, you can have that marshmallow right now. Or if you wait, I think the experiment is 10 minutes. Then you can have 2 marshmallows. And so that puts the child in quite a conundrum, because they're being asked to trade an actual, concrete, tangible marshmallow for 2 hypothetical future marshmallows. And it's not that easy to conjure up a hypothetical future reality that has the same tangible significance as something real right in front of you. And so it's an amazing thing that people can do that. And so then the experimenter leaves, and some children grab the marshmallow and just, chomp that thing down right now. Other kids, they videotape kids while they're waiting, and they do all sorts of things. They whistle, they look at the ceiling, they sit on their hands, they try to distract themselves. Of course, they're eyeing that marshmallow like a squirrel eyeing a nut, and trying to restrain themselves. And what I see in that is that the child's prefrontal cortex, the higher cortical systems, are warring with the underlying motivational systems, more primordial motivational systems that govern such things as hunger. The hunger system, the hypothalamic system, says, there's something sweet and fat right sitting there, right bloody now. Grab that thing and stuff it down now. And I'm sure many of you have a constant battle with your hypothalamus with regards to sweet and fat things, and often lose. So you can feel some sympathy for the child. And the hypothalamus has these tremendously powerful tendrils upward into the brain, into the parts that we would associate more with voluntary control. And the voluntary control centers have these little weak ribbons going down to control the hypothalamus. It's pretty obvious, if you know something about neuroanatomy, what part is actually in charge when the chips are down. And it's not easy for children to learn to regulate those underlying primordial impulses, the ones that are wired in, the ones that we share with animals, but they do it. And the cool thing is, this is what Walter Mischel found, he's the guy who did the study, was that the long-term outcome for the children who can delay gratification in the marshmallow test is much more positive than it is for the children that are impulsive and eat the marshmallow instantly. It's delay of gratification. Now, it's likely that that's associated with trait conscientiousness, although that specific connection has not yet been established, but they seem conceptually very, very similar. So anyways, this emerges in children probably between the ages of 2 and 4, something like that. They should have it in place by 4 because it's very difficult for them to really interact well with other children without having that delay of gratification in place. Because if you can't delay gratification, other kids don't like you because you want everything your way and you want it now, and you're liable to temper tantrums and that sort of thing. You haven't got the kind of self-control necessary to make you fun to play with. So you can see that emerging in children, and it's pretty interesting. And not only that, if it emerges, it predicts positive long-term outcomes, just like trait conscientiousness does, by the way, because trait conscientiousness is the second best predictor of long-term success over the lifespan. In Western cultures, it's second after intelligence. And so in our societies, the people who do best across time are the people who have high IQs and who work hard. And I would say that's a pretty decent, what would you call it? It's a validation in some sense that our cultures are working properly, because what you would want, I would say, if the system is working meritocratically like it should, and if you're trying to extract resources from those who can contribute at a higher rate, then what you would want to have happen is that the hardworking, smart people do better. Hopefully, if that's the case, then everyone does better. Hopefully. Anyways, so you can see this developing in children. First were the endless tens or hundreds of thousands of years prior to the emergence of written history and drama. The twin practices of delay and exchange began to emerge slowly and painfully. Then they became represented in metaphorical abstraction as rituals and tales of sacrifice. It's as if there's a powerful figure in the sky who's judging you. You better keep him happy or look the hell out. We've been watching ourselves deal with him for a long time. He seems to like it when you give up something you value. So practice sharing and sacrificing until you get good at it. No one actually said any of this so long ago, although they said something very similar. But it was implicit in the practice and then in the stories. Action comes first. Implicit comes first. People watched the successful succeed and the unsuccessful fail for thousands and thousands of years, and we thought it over and we drew a conclusion. The successful among us sacrifice. The successful among us delay gratification. The successful among us bargain with the future. And then a great idea begins to emerge in ever more articulated form. That idea is the point of a long and profound story. It's the moral of the story. And I'm going to engage in some foreshadowing here. What's the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful? The successful sacrifice, and things get better as the successful practice their sacrifices. The question becomes increasingly precise and simultaneously broader. What is the greatest possible sacrifice for the greatest possible good? You know, if you push a question in a direction, perhaps there comes a time when you can't formulate it any more precisely and broadly, and that's the point at which the question, in some sense, and perhaps even the answer, the question becomes archetypal. It becomes archetypal because it can't be bested. And this is like an ultimate question in some sense. How are you going to ask a more broad-based question than that? What is, given the initial presuppositions that you have to make sacrifices, then the logical endpoint to that is something like, okay, if you have to make a sacrifice, what's the greatest possible sacrifice and for the greatest possible good? That's a good question. The answer becomes increasingly profound. The God of Western tradition, like so many gods, requires sacrifice. We've already examined why, but sometimes he goes even further and requires the sacrifice of what is loved best. This is why. And this is another one of mankind's fundamental discoveries. Sometimes things do not go well. That's self-evident. But here's the rub. Sometimes when things are not going well, it's precisely that which is most valued that is the cause. Why? It's because the world is revealed through the template of your values. If the world you are seeing is not the world you want, therefore, it's time to examine your values. It's time to rid yourself of your current presuppositions. There's a famous experiment that I've alluded to a couple of times, I believe, in this lecture series, the invisible gorilla experiment. And in the invisible gorilla experiment, there's two teams of players, each with 3 members, one dressed in black and the other dressed in white, and each team is passing a basketball back and forth to the team members and milling about. You see a video of them doing so. They basically fill the video screen, and the white team is passing a basketball to the white team members, and the black team is passing a basketball to the black team members, and your job, as far as the experimenter is concerned, is for you to count the number of times that the black team passes the basketball back and forth. So that's what you do. So now you have an ambition and an aim and a value. And the ambition and the aim and the value, they're all the same thing. And that is to perform well at the task. Now the thing that's so cool about this, and this is really so cool, it's just unbelievable that this is the case. It's like a complete validation of a certain element of the Buddhist worldview. So they pass the ball for a couple of minutes, and then the experimenter says to you, how many? And you say 15, and because you're happy with yourself because you've been paying attention. And the experimenter says, yeah, that's right, or maybe not, maybe you missed one. And then the experimenter says, did you see the gorilla? And half of you say, what gorilla? Like, really? And the experimenter says, yes. And then he rewinds it and plays the video, and like a minute and a half into the 3-minute video, sure enough, in walks this guy in a gorilla suit, 6'3" or so, stands in the middle of the game, right in the middle of the game, the same size as the players, perfectly, obviously evident, beats his chest for like a second and a half, and then sort of saunters off. And half the people who watch the video don't see the gorilla, which is absolutely shocking. And what that means is that your ambitions blind you to the nature of reality. Now, they illuminate some reality, but they blind you to most of it. And that's fine, because there's not a lot of you in some ways. You're a very pinpoint thing, like a laser beam. And so you just can't be attending to everything all the time. But one of the things that you might ask yourself once you know that is that if you're suffering dreadfully, then one possibility is that you're so fixed on the point, the fact that you're so fixed on the point that you're fixed on might be integrally related to why things are going so catastrophically wrong. Now, perhaps not, because, there's a lot of arbitrariness about life. And perhaps you suffer even when you don't deserve to. That seems to happen in the book of Job, for example, because Job is a good guy, and God has a bet with Satan, which seems like another relatively nasty thing to do, to let Satan just torture him, and he does quite nicely, to see if he'll turn against God. And it seems like a rather playground sort of thing for God to engage in. But the point is that even in a document like the Old Testament, there's ample suggestion that sometimes people just get wiped out and hurt, even if they're living good moral lives, aiming properly and all that. There's an arbitrariness in life that's not eradicable. But it's possible that it's what you're clinging to that's hurting you. And it's even possible that's the thing that you're clinging to the hardest that's hurting you the most. That could easily be someone you love. Like lots of times I see people in therapy and they're miserable for one reason or another. And sometimes it's because they have a very close relationship with a family member, and that just isn't working. The family member for the sake of simplicity, we'll say, is not really oriented towards helping them have a good life. The family member is instead oriented towards making them as bloody miserable as you can possibly make anyone. And what would you say? Exploiting the bond between family members in order to enable that. And then sometimes the sacrifice that's necessary is either merely distancing yourself from that person, sometimes substantively, and sometimes seriously distancing yourself from them, like, we don't talk anymore, ever. And so that's pretty damn rough, and it hurts and all of that. But it's a good example of the fact that sometimes in order to extract yourself from the miserable bit of chaos that you happen to be enmeshed in, you have to let go of what you love best. If the world you are seeing is not the world you want, therefore it's time to examine your values. That's really worth thinking about, because the alternative too is to curse fate, right? Because if it isn't you, and there's nothing you can do to change, there isn't something you're doing that's wrong, then it's fate itself, it's the world itself, it's other people, let's say, because they're a huge part of the world, or it's the nature of the world itself, or it's God himself in whatever form you either believe in or don't believe in, because it's fundamentally all the same in the sort of situation that I'm describing. So, and one of the things that's really interesting, and I mentioned this before about the Israelites in the Old Testament, is that they got this right. It's really something, because what happens to the Israelites over and over in the Old Testament is that they get all puffed up about how wonderful they are, and then they make moral errors because they're arrogant. And then God comes along and just cuts them into pieces for like generation after generation. And they wobble back to their feet. But they always maintain the same attitude, which is, we did something wrong. We did something wrong. It's like an axiom rather than observation, is that if things are not laying themselves out for us as they should be, then we cannot curse God. We have to look to ourselves. Well, and you think, well, why not curse God? Because maybe it's his fault. And that's a really good question. And one of the things that I've tried to figure out over the last 30 years is, well, why not just curse God? Because there is this arbitrary element to existence, and we are vulnerable, and there is plenty of suffering, and things are unfair. Like, there's problems, right? There's injustice and unfairness and all of these things, and endless suffering. So why not just lay it at the feet of God? And whether God exists or not, in some sense, by the way, with regards to the metaphysics of this particular discussion, is not relevant. The point remains the same either way. And the answer is, as far as I can tell, that if you refuse to take on the responsibility yourself, and you attempt to lay it at the feet of either society or being itself, then you instantly start to act in a way that makes everything much worse. Not only for you, but for everyone else, and maybe even for being itself. And so, no, it's not helpful. Now, if you decide that it's you've got the problem, maybe that's not even true. Like, maybe you are someone who's being tortured by the bet between God and Satan, and like, too bad for you if that happens to be the case. But it still seems to be the appropriate thing for a human being who's standing on his or her own 2 feet in a proper manner to take the responsibility on for themselves, regardless of the counter-arguments that might be made against it. That's really something. It's time to rid yourself of your current presuppositions. I also think of that, it's a Deadwood issue. One of the things you see with motifs like the phoenix. Remember when Harry Potter goes off to fight, he's like St. George, he goes off to fight the hell is that thing? The basilisk that turns you to stone when you look at it. It's a dragon for all intents and purposes. It's guarding a virgin. What's her name? It's not Virginia. It's close to that, though. Ginevra, right, which is a variant of virgin and variant of Virginia. Well, when he gets bitten by the dragon and poisoned, that's the dragon of chaos, right? The thing that turns you to stone when you look at it. When he gets bitten by it, then he's going to die. And yeah, well, if you get bitten by the thing that turns you to stone when you look at it, if it bites you, man, if you're not dead, you're going to wish you are. It's one of the two. And then the phoenix flies in and cries tears into the wound, and that heals him. And the phoenix is the thing that allows the dead wood to burn off occasionally, let's say. Well, I think it's once every 100 years with a phoenix, and of course it's pretty dramatic. The whole damn bird has to go up in flames, and then there's nothing left but an egg. But there's a very serious message there too, which is that, you can compare yourself in some sense to a forest fire, to a forest, and a forest has to burn now and then for the dead wood to clear so that the forest can actually maintain its continued existence. And if you stop the forest from burning for a prolonged period of time, which happened in the United States when they were trying to manage the forest fires too tightly, then all that happens is the dead wood accumulates and accumulates and accumulates and accumulates and accumulates until the whole damn forest is dead wood, and then lightning hits it and it burns so hot that it burns the topsoil off. And then there's nothing left, nothing grows. And so that's a good moral lesson, which is don't wait too long to let the damn dead wood burn off, Maybe a little self-immolation on a daily basis might be preferable to burning yourself all the way down to the bedrock, once every 20 years or so, because maybe there won't be anything left of you when you do that. And, that happens to people all the time. I've seen that happen to people many, many times. The dead wood accumulates, the mess around them gathers, the chaos that they haven't dealt with accumulates, and then one day the spark comes and they burn so far and so fast that there's not enough left of them to recover. And then they're the people who've been eaten by the beast. They're the people who've been eaten by the dragon and now are inside its belly, another very common archetypal motif. And while maybe a hero will come along and rescue them, or maybe they'll just stay in there forever. And that's a precursor to the idea of hell. And it's not something I would recommend. So a little medicine on a regular basis is a lot better than total immolation on terms other than your own, sporadically. It's time to rid yourself of your current presuppositions. There's another thing that, see, in the Soviet Union, when Solzhenitsyn wrote about the Soviet Union and its pathologies, it sort of peaked in terms of its pathological authoritarianism when it became illegal to complain that your life wasn't going well. And you just think about how horrible that is, because lots of times your life isn't going well. I mean, and I don't mean this in some casual way. I mean, maybe you have diabetes and maybe you're going to lose your feet or something. Like, it's really not, it's nothing trivial that's going on here. Something is not good. Or maybe it's economic, or maybe you're unemployed, but you see, the idea in the Soviet Union was, well, we already have all the answers. Everything's perfect. Already. That's what totalitarians think. Well, if everything's perfect, and you're suffering, then, well, maybe there's something wrong with you. Because everything is perfect, after all, and if you're suffering, then, and what are you going to come out and say? Well, I'm suffering? It's like, well, then you're evidence that things aren't perfect, right? You're like a widow or an orphan in an Old Testament story, when the kings got too high and mighty, then they wouldn't pay enough attention to the widows and the orphans, and then the prophet would come along and say, those widows and orphans, they're a lot more important than you think they are, and if you don't pay attention to them properly, then things are going to fall apart around you in a way that you just can't even imagine. And so, well, then you're sort of like your own widow and your own orphan, but you don't get to say, hey, look, things aren't perfect yet because I'm actually having still quite a rough time here. You don't get to admit to your own suffering. If you can't admit to your own suffering, then you certainly... See, the suffering, especially the additional suffering, the excess suffering, should be treated as evidence that you're not doing something quite right yet. It should be treated as evidence that you're wrong. There's something important that you're doing that's wrong. I understand how harsh that is. And I'm not saying that everyone who's suffering is suffering because they're doing something in some simple way that's wrong. I was in an elevator once in a hospital. It's a very terrifying thing. And this person got on who was just in an absolute state of shock. It was really not good. And I don't remember how this happened, but I engaged the person in conversation, and they just said that they had just been diagnosed with what looked to be terminal cancer. And what was horrifying about it was that what they were doing was going over their life in the elevator, trying to figure out what they had done in order to deserve such a fate. They'd immediately taken it on themselves as a moral failing. And that's not what I'm saying. You can't come up to someone who has cancer and say, well, if you weren't such a bloody idiot throughout your whole life, you wouldn't have cancer. And believe me, that happens a lot more than you think. And people who have diseases like that get blamed for it. That's not what I'm saying. It's not like that. It's a more generalized attitude. That is that if life isn't yet what it should be, then you have a primary responsibility to do something about it. And the place to start looking is to your own errors and to fix them. And that's a safe bet, man, because you're probably doing some things that you wouldn't have to be doing that if you fixed would make things better. So it's time to let go and to sacrifice who you are for who you could become. There's an old story about how to catch a monkey. In case any of you are interested in how to catch a monkey, now you're going to know how to do it. First, you have to take a large, narrow-necked jar, just large enough in diameter at the top for a monkey to put its hand inside. Then you have to fill it partway with rocks so it's too heavy for the monkey to carry. Then you scatter some treats near the jar to attract them, and you put some inside the narrow-necked jar. A monkey will come along, if you're lucky, and grab the goodies, but he'll want the ones inside the jar too, so then put his hand in there and grab what's in there. And if you've set up your monkey trap properly, then he won't be able to get his hand out because he's got the goodies. Not without unclenching his hand, not without relinquishing what he already has. The monkey catcher can just walk over and just pick up the monkey, because the monkey isn't into the whole sacrifice thing, because he's just a monkey, And so you can catch him as a consequence of his own unregulated hypothalamic desires. And to be, what would you say, charitable to the monkey, if you put out candy or something like that. It's like, how often does a monkey get candy? He's probably a little more motivated than you are to not let go, but you get the point. The monkey catcher can just walk over to the jar and pick up the monkey. The animal will not sacrifice the part for the whole. That's actually a pretty good phrase, eh? It's the animal that will not sacrifice the part for the whole. Perhaps this story is apocryphal, but as an eccentric psychology professor once told me, fiction lies to you in the most truthful possible manner. Something valuable given up ensures future prosperity. Something valuable sacrificed pleases the Lord. Those are equivalent statements. One's more articulated, I would say that's the first statement, and the second one is more dramatic and more embedded in a collective religious dream, you might say. What's most valuable and best sacrificed? Well, obviously that depends on the culture and the time. What is at least emblematic of that? A choice cut of meat. Well, if you're a herdsman, for example, that's a big deal. Generally speaking, throughout human history, meat has been a very valuable commodity, as it is, by the way, among chimpanzees. Chimpanzees hunt. They like to hunt colobus monkeys. And, they'll basically start eating the damn monkey alive. They weigh about 40 pounds, despite the fact that the thing is screaming away. And that's pretty interesting, because one of the things it indicates is that male monkeys, male chimps, they're the ones that do the hunting, aren't really inhibited that much when they're in hunter mode by what you might describe as empathy. And there's certain elements of human behavior that are reminiscent of that. You see that sort of thing emerge now and then in human battlefields when groups of men seem to abandon all internal regulation whatsoever to a degree that makes you wonder if internal regulation even exists. Choice cut of meat. Well, meat's valuable, and there's a good document by Richard Wrangham, I think, a while back, a book about the human invention of fire. And I think I told you a little bit about this. Wrangham claimed that we invented fire, discovered fire, mastered it, maybe 2 or 3 million years ago. That's a long time, longer than people had thought. And that's what actually transformed us physiologically from our chimp-like ancestors into the sort of svelte creatures we are now, because it's a lot easier to digest cooked meat, and meat is a tremendous source of nutrition, energy, raw materials, all of that, especially if it's cooked. So meat's a big deal. Cooked meat is a big deal. And maybe it's a choice cut of meat. The kind you might offer to a guest if you're not a, I always say this wrong. Is it vegan? Vegan, or it's vegan. I always think vegan, but that's wrong. That's a star. Vega's a star, right? They're not like star creatures. They're yeah. Anyway, so, you might offer that, especially if a guest came to your abode and you were a herdsman. You might sacrifice a high-end animal and offer your guest a nice choice cut of meat, and that would actually matter. It would mean something. From the best animal in a flock. What's above even that? Well, in terms of the thing you could sacrifice, well, your best animal, that's good. Well, how about you? How about your child? How about you? Well, that would be next on the hierarchy. It's kind of hard to get past that, right? And I think it's a toss-up whether the sacrifice is greater if it's you or if it's your child. I would say, being a parent, that it's greater if it's your child. Because I think most people who have established I hesitate to say proper, but I'm going to anyway, it's a proper relationship with their children. It's, if push came to shove, they'd take the bullet and let their kid go live. The sacrifice of the mother is exemplified profoundly by Michelangelo's great sculpture, the Pieta. Mary is contemplating her son crucified and ruined, so that's his body after he's been crucified. It's her fault. It was through her he entered the great drama of being. So what's the meaning of this sculpture? It's a great sculpture. It's just an absolutely unbelievable sculpture. You just can't believe that someone could exist who could make something like, and of course it wasn't the only thing Michelangelo made, right? It wasn't like, that's it. It was something he just tossed off in a couple of months while he was doing other unbelievable things. But, it's an object of contemplation, which is why it's in a great cathedral in a great city. It's an object of contemplation, and the idea is something like, well, what's the role of a mother if she's awake? I had a client come see me a while back, not very long ago. Woman who's about 30 and trying to make decisions about her life. And she was pretty career-oriented, and so I asked her about, although maybe having a bit of trouble with her career. I've seen this many, many times. So this is an amalgam. This is a story that's an amalgam. And I talked to her about the other elements of her life. It's like, well, there's only 5 things you do in life, so you've got your career down. What do you do outside of your career that's meaningful and engaging? How are things going with your family? It could be your family of origin, your siblings, whatever. Do you have an intimate relationship? And what's your plan for your own family? And apart from those 5 things, there's sort of something like, get some exercise now and then, don't eat too badly, and try to stay away from the drugs, That kind of, and the crime, that kind of lays out life. And if you miss any of those 5 things, or if you do any of those other things wrong, then you're in trouble. And you can get away with missing a couple of them, but not all of them. And she said something along the lines of, well, I'm not sure I should bring a child into this world. And I thought, oh, God, Christ, you got to come up with something better than that. It's such a bloody cliche, which is what I told her. I said, you must have thought that up when you were 16. It's like, really? You can't do any better? This was a very, very smart woman. It's like, really, you can't do any better than that? It's like, yes, obviously, this is a vale of tears and, a well of suffering and all of that. If you ask 30 people who are wondering about having children, why they're wondering, 20 of them will say that. And so that tells you how original it is. It's not original at all. It's not a thought. It's like this little, it's a meme. It's something that lives in your mind. It's not a thought. And it's certainly not something that you should just take at face value and then say, oh, well, I'm not having a family then. It's like, no. You kind of look at that and you criticize it a little bit. It's like, well, it's the other one. That's the other one that's very common. There's too many people on the planet already. It's like, I really don't like that statement. It's like, just who are you going to ask to leave? Just how are you going to get them to leave? It's a serious question. And who says there's too many people? What the hell's wrong with people anyways? We're running around ruining the planet. Yeah. It's like, I think it was the Club of Rome who prophesied, by the way, that there would be so many people on the planet by the year 2000 that there would be widespread starvation. And they were completely and utterly wrong about that. and I think it was the Club of Rome, who either compared us to a virus or a cancer on the face of the planet. It's like, oh, really? That's what you think about people, eh? Aren't you something? Isn't that something to think about human beings? Viruses and cancer. What do you do with viruses and cancer? Invite them in and make them at home. It's like, no, you try to eradicate them. You got to bloody well watch your metaphors, folks, because it isn't clear that you come up with them or that they run you. So you better watch them. So anyways, Mary, and Mary's the great mother, right? That she's the mother. That's what Mary is. Whether she existed or not is not the point. She exists at least as a hyper-reality. She exists as the mother. Well, what's the sacrifice of the mother? Well, that's easy. If you're a mother, if you're a mother who's worth her salt, you offer your son to be destroyed by the world. That's what you do. I mean, that's what's going to happen, right? He's going to be born. He's going to suffer. He's going to have his trouble in life. He's going to have his illnesses. He's going to face his failures and catastrophes, and he's going to die. That's what's going to happen. And if you're awake, you know that, and then you say, well, perhaps he will live in a way that will justify that. And then you try to have that happen. And that's what makes you worthy of a statue like that. But still the sacrifice of the mother. Is it right to bring a baby into this terrible world? Well, every woman asks herself that question. Some say no, and they have the reasons. Mary answers yes, voluntarily. Mary is the archetype of the woman who answers yes to life voluntarily. That's what that image means. And not because she's blind. She knows what's going to happen. And so she's the archetypal representation of the woman who says yes to life, knowing full well what life is. Not naive, not someone who got pregnant in the back seat of a 1957 Chevy, in one night of half-drunk idiocy. Not that, but consciously, knowing what's to come. And then also allows it to happen, because that's another thing that's a testament to the courage of mothers. And my mother was good at this. My mother's a very agreeable person. Too agreeable for her own good. But that's what happens if you're agreeable, because you're too agreeable for your own good. That's the definition of agreeable. And so she's a nice person, and still is. Luckily, she's still alive, and we've had a very good relationship, and I have always been able to make her laugh, which is a good thing. But she was tough cookie, that woman, Remember once she came across, I was out playing in this baseball little diamond, in empty lot really, in this little town I grew up in. And I was about 10, and she walked by. I was there with a bunch of my friends. And I was about to have a fist fight with this little tough kid that I hung around with. And there were half girls on the team, and the fist fight had some relationship to status maneuvering, in relationship to that. Anyways, we were going to have a fight. And my mom walked by. She took a look. And I could see from her demeanor that she knew exactly what was about to happen. And she looked for a second, and then she walked by. And I thought, whoa, good work, Mom. No kidding, eh? It's like last bloody thing I needed at that moment was for her to come charging up and say, you boys aren't planning to have a fight, are you? It's like, well, yeah, Mom, we were actually planning to have a fight. And now that you came and intervened, I actually lost before the goddamn thing even started. So 2 thumbs up for Mom. She was also the person that said, because I had some trouble with my dad when I was, an adolescent. He had some trouble with me. So, it was 50-50. That's for now. It's probably 70-30 with me on the 70 end of that being the trouble. And anyways, I left home when I was about 17. And she said something really interesting when I left home. She said, if it was too good at home, you'd never leave. I thought, hey, Mom, that's pretty good. For an agreeable person, you've got a real spine, man. So that was pretty good. So mother, that says this. The mother is the person who also says, get out there, take your goddamn lumps, because you're tough enough so that you can handle it. She doesn't say, you just stay down there in your bedroom brooding away because the world is unfair and treating you badly, and your suffering is too much. She says, yeah, there's a lot of suffering out there, but you're a hell of a lot tougher than you think you are. So, in turn, Mary's son, Christ, offers himself to God so completely that his faith and trust in the world is not broken by betrayal, torture, or death. That's the model for the honorable man. So, you have an interesting dynamic there. You have the woman who's willing to make the sacrifice, lays the groundwork for the son who is willing to make the sacrifice. That works out pretty nicely. And it's a good thing to know. In Christ's case, however, as he sacrifices himself, God, his Father, is simultaneously sacrificing his Son, right? That's one of the oddities of the Trinitarian model, is that God sacrifices himself to himself. Same thing happens in Norse mythology, right? Is it Norse? It's Zeus. Germanic mythology. Zeus sacrifices himself to himself. He actually hangs on a tree. He's actually wounded in his side. It's a very interesting parallel. But I think part of the idea is, well, the human race is trying to work out, well, what's the ultimate sacrifice? It's something like that, the ultimate sacrifice of value. Well, the passion story, and I told you I was foreshadowing, I'm bringing into consideration things we won't talk about for a long time, maybe not at all in this lecture series, I don't know, because I don't know how far I'll get, is that there's a supreme sacrifice demanded on the part of the mother, and there's a supreme sacrifice demanded on the part of the son, and there's a supreme sacrifice demanded on the part of the father, all at the same time. And then that makes the supreme sacrifice possible, and hypothetically that's the one that renews. That's the sacrifice that renews and redeems. It's a hell of an idea, man. And the thing about it is that I don't know if it's true, but I know that its opposite is false. And generally the opposite of something that's false is true. Its opposite is false is because if the mother doesn't make the sacrifice, then you get the horrible Oedipal situation or something like that in the household, which is just its own absolute catastrophic hell. And if you want a really good insight into that, I would say watch the documentary Crumb, C-R-U-M-B. Man, that's been rated by some critics as the best documentary ever made, and it is some piece of work, man. It is the only thing I've ever seen that actually lays out the Oedipal catastrophe in its full nightmare. So you could look at that. So if the maternal sacrifice isn't there, then that doesn't work. If the paternal sacrifice isn't there, if the father isn't willing to put his son out into the world, let's say to be broken and betrayed and all of those things, then that's a non-starter because the kid doesn't grow up. And then if the son isn't willing to do that, well, then who the hell is going to shoulder the responsibility? So if those three things don't happen, then it's cataclysmic, it's chaotic, it's hell. If they do happen, is it the opposite of that? Well, you could say, well, maybe it depends on the degree to which they happen. And it's a continuum. How thoroughly can they happen? Well, we don't know, because you might say, how good a job do you do of encouraging your children to live in truth? Let's say. Well, that's part of the answer to this question. And the answer likely is, well, you don't do as good a job of it as you could. So it works out quite well, but you don't know how well it could work if you did it really well or spectacularly well or ultimately well or something like that. You don't know. And people have an intimation of this because one of the things that's really cool about having a young baby, this is something you don't know till you have it. There's two things you don't know. There's a lot more than two. There's three things you don't know until you have a baby. The one is that you didn't grow up yet. Because you actually don't grow up until someone else is more important than you. You can't. So people think they grow up if they don't have children, but they don't. They just think they do. Now, there are some people who make sacrifices of other sorts, but this is a whole different ball of wax as far as I'm concerned. It's not a very elegant metaphor, but you learn that it's kind of a relief not to be the center of attention. That's cool, that you can sit back. Because, of course, your child in your family and in society is immediately the center of attention. And so, unless you're narcissistic, then you allow that to happen. And then you learn all sorts of really good things about other people, because other people really like babies. It's so cool. I lived in Montreal when we had our first child, and I lived in a pretty rough neighborhood, by Montreal standards, right? It's like Montreal is such a great city, like Toronto. It's like even the rough neighborhoods they're more like charming with a little, dark underbelly, something like that. But there were some rough characters in our neighborhood. It was pretty poor. And we'd push her around in her stroller, and these like grizzled, wrecked old guys would come by, and they'd look at her, and they'd just light up, and they'd come over and like smile at her, and you just saw the positive element of their humanity just well forth. There has to be something seriously wrong with you if you don't respond that way to a baby. That's not good. That's not good. But it was so cool to see these people. You kind of give them, generally, you'd sort of walk 4 feet around them on the street, and yet they were all of a sudden, the layers that were on them would just fall off, and they'd be and the babies are sort of like public property, weirdly enough, too. Sort of like pregnant women, because people often treat pregnant women sort of like they're public property, too. I mean, in a positive way. Oh, well, look, you're going to have a baby, eh? And then, they do all sorts of cute things. So, the reason I'm telling you that is because there's a strong impulse in people to note that there's something miraculous about the existence of a new human being. And the miraculous element is all the potential that's there, right? That's all there is potential. And with every birth, there's the potential for something remarkable to be introduced in the world. And one of the things I've thought too is, the other thing you don't know is that babies are generic until you have one. And then your baby isn't a generic baby at all. It's like, instantly it's a person with whom you have a relationship that's closer, perhaps, than any relationship that you've ever had, and that you can keep perfect. Right? Because most of the relationships you've had already are with people who are screwed up in 50 different ways. And so are you. But here you've got this baby, and you care, but it's not ruined yet. And so, you have this possibility of maintaining this relationship that starts out, that baby really likes you. And generally that continues for quite a long time. And if they're 2 years old and you come home, they're really happy to see you. It's kind of like having a puppy. It's like they're thrilled when you come home. It's like, how many people are thrilled when you come home, So it's you again. It's like, no, not a little kid. A little kid is thrilled when you come home. And you can keep that going. And so there's this pristine element to the potential relationship between parents and children that's terribly devalued in our society. It's almost as if we're willfully blind to it. And I think it's an absolute catastrophe, because there's very little in life that can compare to establishing a proper relationship with a child. They make great company if you keep your relationship with them pristine. And so, it's worthwhile. You think, well, and so the reason I'm telling you this is because people look at infants and they think this could be the potential savior of mankind. That is what they think. That's how they act. So that's what they think. And the thing is, it's also true. Now, how true it is, I don't know. But that's, I think, probably because it's probably because people don't dare to find out. That's how it looks to me. In Christ's case, however, as he sacrifices himself, God, his Father, is simultaneously sacrificing his Son. It is for this reason that the Christian sacrificial drama of Son and self is archetypal. Nothing greater can be imagined. That's why it's an archetype. You can't push past it. So, that's the very definition of archetypal. That's the core of what constitutes religious. The greatest of all possible sacrifices is self and child. Of that there can be no doubt. Pain and suffering define the world. Of that equally there can be no doubt. The person who wants to alleviate suffering, who wants to bring about the best of all possible futures, who wants to create heaven on earth, will therefore sacrifice everything he has to God, to life in the truth. So that's a page and a half from the book I'm going to release in January. So back to Genesis. So we're already up to Genesis 4. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived. and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. Now, this is after Adam and Eve have been chased out of the Garden of Eden, right? So what's really cool about this, I really think that the Cain and Abel story is the most profound story I've ever read, especially given that you can tell it in 15 seconds. I won't, because I tend not to tell stories in 15 seconds, as you may have noticed. But you can read the whole thing that quickly. And it's so densely packed that I just can't, it's actually unbelievable to me that it can be that densely packed. Okay, so the first thing is that Adam and Eve are not the first two human beings. Cain and Abel are the first two human beings. Because Adam and Eve were made by God and they were born in paradise. It's like, what kind of human beings are those? You don't know any human beings like that. Human beings aren't born in paradise and made by God. Human beings are born of other human beings, right? And so that's the first thing. And it's post-fall. We're out in the world. We're out in history now. We're not in some archetypal beyond, although we are still to some degree. Not to the degree that was the case with the story of Adam and Eve. We've already been thrown out of the garden. We're already self-conscious. We're already awake. We're already covered. We're already working. We're full-fledged human beings. And so you have the first two human beings, Cain and Abel, prototypical human beings. So what's cool is that humanity enters history at the end of the story of Adam and Eve, and then the archetypal patterns for human behavior are instantaneously presented. It's absolutely mind-boggling, and it's not a very nice story, right? So they're brothers, they're hostile brothers. They've got their hands around each other's throats, so to speak, or at least that's the case in one direction. So it's a story. The first two human beings engage in a fratricidal struggle that ends in the death of the best one of them. That's the story of human beings in history. And that, man, if that doesn't give you nightmares, you didn't understand the damn story. Now, in these hostile brother stories, which are very, very common, often the older brother, Cain, is used, and this is very true in the Bible, but it's true in all sorts of folk tales and all sorts of stories, of all sorts for that matter. See, the older brother has some advantages. He's the older brother, and in an agricultural community, the older brother generally inherited the land, not the younger brothers. And the reason for that is that, well, let's say you have like 8 sons, and you have enough land to support a bit of a family, and you divide it among your 8 sons. Then they have 8 sons, and they divide it among their 8 sons. It's like soon everyone has a little postage stamp that they can stand on and starve to death on. And so that just doesn't work. So you hand the land down in a piece to the eldest son, and that's just how it is. It's tough luck for the rest of them, but at least they know they're going to have to go and make their own way. It's not fair, but there's no way of making it fair. Well, so the oldest son has some, you might say he has an additional stake in the stability and the stability of the current hierarchy. He has more of a stake in the status quo. So that makes him more of an emblematic representative of the status quo, and perhaps more likely to be blind in its favor. It's something like that. So that motif creeps up very frequently in the hostile brothers' archetypal struggle. So Cain fits this, the story of Cain and Abel fits this pattern because Cain is the one who won't budge, who won't move. He's stubborn, whereas the younger son, who's Abel, is often the one who's more, not so much of a revolutionary, but perhaps more of a balance between the revolutionary and the traditionalist, something like that. Whereas the older son tends to be more traditionalist, authoritarian, at least in these metaphorical representations. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. So there's the first human being, Cain. It's like I told you that the Mesopotamians thought that mankind was made out of the blood of the worst demon that the great goddess of chaos could imagine. Well, the first human being is a murderer. And not only a murderer of his own brother. And so, Old Testament, that's a hell of a harsh book. And you might think, well, maybe that's a little bit too much to bear. And then you might think, yeah, and maybe it's true too. So that's something to think about. I mean, Human beings, like, they're amazing creatures, and to think about us as a plague on the planet is its own kind of bloody catastrophe, malevolent, low, quasi-genocidal metaphor. But that doesn't mean that we're not without our problems. And the fact that this book that sits at the cornerstone of our culture would present the first man as a murderer of his brother is something that should really set you back on your heels. And again, she bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. There you see a very old representation. There's Abel there, and he's got his sheep up on the altar, and Cain is bringing a sheaf of wheat. And I don't know exactly what's happening here with the blood, or it's a ray, perhaps, it's something like that. But the overall impression of the image is that something transcendent is communicating with this sacrifice. And you see, you think, oh, how primitive, how primitive these people were sacrificing to their God. It's like, those people weren't stupid. And this is not primitive. Whatever it is, it's not primitive. It's sophisticated beyond belief, because the idea, as I already pointed out, is that you could sacrifice something of value and that would have transcendent utility. And that is by no means an unsophisticated idea. In fact, it might be the greatest idea that human beings ever came up with. It's an answer to the problem that's put forward in the story of Adam and Eve, right? Because we became self-conscious, and then we discovered the future, and then we knew we were going to die, and then we knew we were vulnerable, and then we became ashamed, and then we developed the knowledge of good and evil, and then we got thrown out of paradise. It's like, that's a big problem. So what the hell are you going to do about it? Well, sacrifice. That's the hypothesis. Well, that's a hell of a hypothesis, man. That's what we're doing. You made plenty of sacrifices, even to sit in this theater, and many people made plenty of sacrifices to have a theater like this exist. And many people made sacrifices so that we could actually freely engage in the dialogue that we're engaging in a theater like this. And so it's like all of this is built on sacrifice, and sacrifice bloody well better work, because we do not have a better idea. Sacrifice, what's the counter position? Murder and theft. So let's go with sacrifice, shall we? And perhaps we won't consider it so damn primitive. No, because it's not so primitive. And again, she bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. Now, some people have read into this the eternal battle between herdsmen and agriculturalists, which raged in the American West, for example, because the herdsmen liked to have their herds, sheep, cattle, go wherever they were going to go. And of course, the agriculturists, the farmers, liked to have things fenced off. And the agriculturalists actually won in the final analysis. But anyways, Abel is a keeper of sheep. And that's interesting, because that makes him a shepherd. And I think that's part of the critical issue here, because a shepherd, I talked a little bit about shepherds before. If you look at Michelangelo's statue of David, which is another staggering work. I mean, that David, he's no trivial figure. And of course, it's David who slays Goliath, right? And Goliath is like the giant of the patriarchal enemy. It's something like that. And, Middle Eastern shepherds, they had to take care of sheep, and they're edible. And the lambs are very vulnerable. And there were lots of wild animals around. It wasn't like England in the 16th century. It was like there were lions, and you had a slingshot or a stick or some damn thing, and so your job was to keep the sheep organized and not let them be eaten by the lions alone. And so you had to have a clue and be tough and self-reliant and all of those things. You had to be tough and self-reliant. You had to be able to take care of a lot of vulnerable things. You had to be able to do it on your own. And so that's all built into the shepherd metaphor. And it's a tough thing. It's not a great metaphor for modern people, because we tend to think of the shepherd as someone like little Lord Fauntleroy, like some little, certainly not a lion-killing, hyper-masculine, lion-killing, monster. That's not a shepherd. The shepherd sort of dances around, and, that's not the metaphor here. That's That's not the metaphor here. So Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. Okay, so he's participating in this sacrificial ritual. And Abel, he brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. Now you don't know why that is, and this is a built-in ambiguity, I think. Now, I think there's textual hints, but I'm not sure. Abel brought the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, he brought it's a high quality sacrifice. You don't know that Abel's sacrifice is low quality, because it doesn't say, Abel brought God some wilted lettuce and then burnt it. He doesn't say that. But there isn't a sentence there that talks about how high quality Cain's sacrifice is. But in any case, the Lord had respect unto Abel and his offering. So there's a hint